Chapter 1307. In Yuan Pavilion. Yunxiang, my overly tough attitude made that old and disrespectful fellow mistakenly think that I have a powerful expert at the level of Emperor Wu protecting me, so he can only choose to tolerate me for the time being. After a slight pause, Yu Haoran deliberately raised his voice and continued shouting. Don't be fooled by how the people of the Yushu Temple usually act high and mighty, as if they're not afraid of anyone. In fact, they're exactly the same as ordinary forces and ordinary warriors. They're also a bunch of weaklings who bully the weak and fear the strong. The terrestrial venerable, who had just left Yuan Pavilion, heard Yu Haoran's deliberately raised voice and mocked him. His originally gloomy face seemed to be able to squeeze water out of it, and his hands and his sleeves clenched tightly. Qingyu, the terrestrial venerable, took a deep breath and suppressed the strong, murderous intent that kept surging in his heart. He then turned his head and ordered a young man behind him. Master! Qingyu cupped his fists and answered. Inform Bai Bian and ask him to take Yu Haoran's head at all costs after the auction is over. Yes, master. When Qingyu saw that the earthly venerate was temporarily enduring because he did not want to be labeled as someone who bullied the weak, nor did he want to be criticized by the people of the world, Qingyu immediately accepted the order excitedly. President Wu, Great Elder, I'm really sorry. The trial in the secret realm was delayed for a while, so I came a little late. Seeing that the terrestrial venerable could continue to tolerate his mockery, Yu Haoran couldn't help but admire his sinister scheming. After that, Yu Haoran directly turned around and apologized to Wu Xiqing and Bian Xingrui. You're too polite, Prince Consort. You're not late at all. After hurriedly comforting him with a smile, Bian Xingrui gestured for Yu Haoran to sit down. Wu Xiqing, on the other hand, was slightly angry and wanted to reprimand him, but he was directly interrupted by Bian Xingrui's words. Prince Consort, we have already set up the auction venue. The experts in charge of maintaining the auction venue have also been arranged. The only thing we lack now is an auctioneer in charge of the auction items. After Yu Haoran sat down on the stone chair, Bian Xingui introduced him with a solemn expression. After all, the items you've prepared are too valuable. Even I don't have the confidence to be the auctioneer. President Wu, Great Elder, if you trust me, Yu Haoran, why don't you let me host the auction? The problem that Bian Xingrui was facing now was exactly what Yu Haoran had been looking forward to. Therefore, he went straight to the point with his request. Prince Consort, this is against the rules. Without even considering it, Wu Xiqing immediately shook his head and refused. No. However, Bian Xingrui gave a different opinion. President, actually, Prince Consort is the most suitable person for this position. Great Elder. Seeing Bian Xingrui overturn his decision twice in a row, Wu Xiqing immediately reminded him in a loud voice, displeased. President, don't be angry. Let this subordinate give you a detailed analysis. Ignoring Wu Xiqing's displeased reminder and not avoiding Yu Haoran's listening, Bian Xingrui explained in detail the familiarity and safety of the auction items, as well as the aspects of the Chamber of Commerce could avoid liability. Great Elder, this Wu has suddenly caught a cold and needs to return to the headquarters to recuperate. You will be fully in charge of this auction. Although Bian Xingrui's analysis was reasonable, when he thought about how nearly 70% of the Tianxin continent's forces and experts were gathered in Twin Bull City, Wu Xiqing simply didn't believe that this auction would be able to proceed smoothly. At the same time, Yu Haoran's disregard and Bian Xingrui's toughness made him quite unhappy, and at the same time, he couldn't help but be vigilant in his heart. Therefore, he now wanted to stay out of the matter and avoid the responsibility of mistakes in the auction. At the same time, he also wanted to take advantage of the opportunity after Bian Xingrui's failure to completely take over his position as the Great Elder, so as to avoid the situation of being overshadowed by his achievements in the future. Looking at Wu Xiqing, who didn't give him a chance to stay and turned to leave Yuan Pavilion directly, Bian Xingui was stunned. Yu Haoran sneered, and Yunxiang muttered discontentedly in a low voice. Unambitious and short-sighted, Uncle Wu is no longer suitable to continue to be the president of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce. Yunxiang, shut up. After hearing Yunxiang's whisper, Bian Xingrui, who came back to his senses, immediately rebuked her with a livid face. Then, when he got up to persuade Wu Xiqing to stay, he was stopped by Yu Haoran, who shook his head. Great Elder, President Wu has already left Twin Ox Mountain with 2 peerless martial venerables. His livid face was instantly replaced by gloominess, and Bian Xingrui finally couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Alas! After the long sigh, Bian Xingrui said to Yu Haoran with a bitter smile on his face, Prince Consort, I'm really sorry. In fact, the 4 peerless martial venerables were used to deter some people with ulterior motives, but now, shaking his head, Bian Xingrui smiled bitterly and didn't continue speaking. Great Elder, in the entire auction, you only need to arrange a dozen partners to guide the guests into the venue, and the appraiser in charge of the auction items for me. Leave the rest to me. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation with a bitter smile, he immediately indicated with a smile. Will it work? Bian Xingrui asked worriedly. Great Elder, just wait for the Chamber of Commerce to use this auction to completely become the largest chamber of commerce in the Tianxian continent. As he stood up with a smile, Yu Haoran indicated for Yunxiang to bring him around the auction house to familiarize himself with the auction's procedures in advance. There were less than 5 hours before the auction started, and the largest restaurant in Rydok City was already filled with guests. It was a hubbub of voices. At this moment, everyone was discussing the value of each item that was about to be auctioned, as well as the final price that could be reached. Brother Huang, the auction is about to begin. As a waiter of the Chamber of Commerce, shouldn't you be busy at the auction house? How come you have the leisure to come here and drink? In the hall on the first floor of the restaurant, a muscular middle-aged man carrying 2 jars of fine wine walked to a young man who occupied a table and asked with a laugh, Brother Lin. Seeing the middle-aged man put the jars of wine on the table, the young man called Brother Huang hurriedly stood up and greeted him. Brother Huang, tell me, how come you have the time to come here alone to drink? Placing one of the jars of fine wine in front of the young man surnamed Huang, the muscular man surnamed Lin continued to ask with a smile. Shrugging his shoulders, the young man surnamed Huang poured a bowl of fine wine by himself. After drinking it in one gulp, a trace of resentment appeared in his eyes. What else can I do? The auction doesn't need us, so I had nothing better to do, so I came here to drink. Brother Huang, what's going on? The auction held by the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce didn't need his waiter to be in charge of it. The young man surnamed Huang's complaint immediately aroused the strong man surnamed Lin's interest. Chapter 1308. Rydok City. After drinking the wine in his bowl, the young man surnamed Huang's face flushed with anger and alcohol as he angrily explained. Brother Lin, our Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce only has a total of 9 rare treasures up for auction this time. 8 of them came from that Yugai. After pouring himself a bowl of wine and drinking it in one go, the young man surnamed Huang continued to complain angrily. I'm sure Brother Lin has heard of what kind of person that Yugai is. He relied on the fact that the 8 auction items were all provided by him. Not only did he take over all the affairs of the auction, but he also personally presided over the entire auction process. And the result? Not only was the president angered to the point of leaving Twin Ox Mountain, but even the great elder became an errand boy. Brother Huang, could it be that your president and great elder have never thought of terminating their cooperation with Yu Haoran? Hearing the reckless complaints of the shop assistant surnamed Huang, the brawny man surnamed Lin asked with a frown. After all, the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce was one of the top forces in the Tianxian continent. They had the capital and confidence to refuse to cooperate with Yu Haoran, even if they had to give up this auction. Of course they did. After pouring himself another bowl of wine, the young man, surnamed Huang, looked around vigilantly. When he saw that no one was paying attention to his conversation with the brawny man surnamed Lin, he said very softly, however, that you guy seemed to have taken out a heaven-defying pill that could help a martial honorable break through to Emperor Wu's realm. In the end, The great elder willingly became an errand boy. The president could only choose to leave Twin Ox Mountain out of sight and out of mind. Afraid that the sound of his gasp would disturb the young man, surnamed Huang, the brawny man, surnamed Lin, hurriedly drank 3 bowls of wine before barely suppressing the shock in his heart. Then he asked for confirmation in a similarly soft voice. "Brother Huang, what is the name of the pill that can help a martial honorable break through to Emperor Wu's realm?" Shaking his head, the young man, surnamed Huang, replied with an uninterested expression. "Who knows? When I was passing by Yuan Pavilion, I accidentally heard the president and that you guy talking about a pill. Brother Huang, I suddenly thought of a very important matter that I haven't dealt with yet. I'll take my leave first." Seeing that the youth surnamed Huang really didn't know the origin of the pill, the brawny man surnamed Lin immediately stood up and said apologetically, "Big brother Lin, you're busy. Little brother, I'm not going home until I'm drunk." The young man surnamed Huang didn't notice that Lin was in a hurry to leave. He continued to pour wine for himself. However, as he finished the wine in the bowl, a hint of pride flashed in his eyes. As Mr. Lin quickly left the hall, many people left the restaurant hall and private rooms at the same time. There was still an hour before the auction officially began. Yu Haoran had already entered the auction lounge in advance. While enjoying Yinxiang's shoulder massage, he closed his eyes and pondered over the entire auction process. The door of the lounge was gently pushed open, and a beautiful maidservant walked in. Then, she whispered a few words in Yinxiang's ear. Waving her hand to signal the maidservant to leave, Yinxiang bent over and whispered in Yu Haoran's ear, "Master, little Huang has already followed your instructions and successfully spread the news without arousing any suspicions. Yunxiang, tell the first elder that little Huang is a good seedling for business. If he is nurtured well, he will definitely become a genius in the business world." After opening his eyes, Yu Haoran praised with satisfaction. "Master, I understand." Nodding her head, Yunxiang continued to massage Lin Huang's shoulders. After closing his eyes again, Yu Haoran sighed to Thaling in his sea of consciousness. "Thaling, the flame has been ignited. As for whether it can become a prairie fire in the end, that will depend on the will of the heavens." While Yunxiang and Bian Shengrui were accompanying him to the auction, Thaling didn't idle around either. Using his victor body to possess the black bear, he carefully inspected the experts hidden in Twin Bull City. He discovered that although the auction this time had attracted many experts, there weren't any people who could truly affect the situation of the continent. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only leak the news of the Emperor Yuan pill in advance in hopes of drawing out the 4 guardian families and some hidden experts who had been hibernating for 1,000 years. "Yu Haoran, your cultivation base is too low. You don't know how difficult it is for Emperor Wu to break through to the next realm. Therefore, you don't know the fatal attraction of the first-rank Emperor Yuan pill to some hidden experts." There were still 20 minutes before the auction officially began. All the experts participating in the auction had already entered the venue. Yu Haoran also ended his contemplation and stepped out of the lounge to prepare to host the auction. Because the auction this time was too grand, there were too many experts and top forces entering Twin Bull City. This caused Bian Shengrui to have some difficulty in arranging the private rooms. Under normal circumstances, a top sect like the Sky Sword sect would definitely arrange for them to be in a private room. However, there were 7 top sects and more than 40 families with over 1 million years of history. 36 private rooms were definitely not enough. In the end, he could only helplessly arrange for them to be in the main hall. Seeing that Bian Shengrui had actually arranged for him to sit in an ordinary seat in the hall, the sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect felt a naked humiliation. He immediately angrily declared that he would tear down the auction house and make it impossible for the auction to continue. As a result, Bian Shengrui could only try his best to explain and comfort him. If you want to be treated in a private room, then go chase away the people in the private rooms you like. Just as the Sky Sword sect master was making a ruckus, Yu Haoran happened to pass by and immediately reprimanded him with a dark expression. If you continue to make a ruckus, then scram from the auction house immediately. Surnamed you. Seeing Yu Haoran appear in front of him, the Sky Sword Sect master immediately thought of Sky Sword Jianying, who had died tragically. He thought of Vice Sect Master Jian Yuan, who had been driven mad by the Sword Dao fate, as well as Jian Yu and Lu Yuan, who had betrayed the sect. Boundless killing intent surged in his heart. Ignoring the Sky Sword Sect master's killing intent, Yu Haoran coldly threatened, "If you don't withdraw your killing intent immediately, in 3 seconds at most, someone will take the initiative to kill you for me." Sensing the anger coming from the private rooms, the Sky Sword Sect master's expression changed. He immediately suppressed his killing intent and gritted his teeth. "Surnamed you, is what you said true? Believe it or not, I can't be bothered with you." After leaving behind a sentence that almost made the Sky Sword Sect master go berserk, Yu Haoran reminded Bian Xingrui, "Grand Elder, no matter who comes looking for you, just tell them directly that they can either go and snatch a private room themselves or sit in the main hall obediently." Chapter 1309. Rydox City in the auction venue. Prince Consort, is this appropriate? On the contrary, those who were qualified to participate in the auction were all experts who could influence the situation in Tianxin continent. They were also people that the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce could not afford to offend. If these people were neglected, Bian Xingrui was worried that it would bring trouble to the Chamber of Commerce and Yu Haoran. Very appropriate. While nodding to confirm, Yu Haoran looked at the 108 seats in the hall and reminded them with a sneer. At the same time, Great Elder would like to remind them that not only do they have to fight for the 36 private rooms, but they also have to fight for the 108 seats in the hall with their strength and confidence. If they don't get anything in the end, they can only stand apologetically. All right. Following Yu Haoran's gaze to the hall, Bian Xingrui found that although more than half of the 108 seats had been taken, there was still an endless stream of experts participating in the auction. He could only nod in agreement in the end. Yu Haoran could not help but sneer as he watched the master of Sky Sword Sect walk to the private room on the second floor, intending to drive the guests out. Then, he walked to the high platform built in the center of the hall on the first floor. He stood on the high platform and slowly closed his eyes. As he adjusted his emotions, he waited for the incense stick below the high platform to burn to its end. Scram! As soon as Yu Haoran closed his eyes, he heard a gloomy and angry shout from the private room on the second floor. Immediately afterward, he heard the sect master of the Heavenly Sword Sect apologizing. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't know that you were an expert from the Nanmen family. I'll scram now." Yu Haoran opened his eyes slightly and looked at the sect master of the Sky Sword Sect, who had left the room in a panic. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Although the Nanmen family was an aristocratic family with a history of more than 1,000,000 years, they could only be considered an ordinary force among the dozens of families participating in the auction. Based on the level of experts and forces entering the hall, they would probably be driven out of the private room in the end. The master of Sky Sword Sect, who was fearful of the Nanmen family, had completely become a miserable and pitiful person. He was constantly scolded and humiliated by the big shots in the private room, but could only apologize with a smile. Then, he continued to humiliate himself and look for a private room. The two peerless Sword Dao experts who had just awakened not long ago had completely lost the pride that Sword Dao should have when they saw their sect master being kicked around like a rubber ball, yet he still did not repent and continued to humiliate himself. They glanced at each other and simultaneously restrained the sect master. Then, they forcefully brought him to a seat in the hall on the first floor. Yu Haoran could not help but shake his head as he looked at the sect master of the Sky Sword Sect, who was struggling with all his might to get up, but was firmly suppressed by the two martial saints standing behind him. In his previous life, although the master of Sky Sword Sect was not a person with great talent and vision, he was still a qualified master of sect. Under his leadership, the master of Sky Sword Sect gradually gained the strength to become a top force after nearly 100 years of accumulation. However, for some reason in this life, the Master of Sky Sword sect's performance was very poor. Not only did he lose the pride that a swordsman should have, but he also lost the breadth of mind and judgment that a leader of a sect should have. Withdrawing his gaze from the Master of Sky Sword sect, Yuhaoran closed his eyes again and continued to regulate his breathing. When the incense at the corner of the stage was extinguished, Yun Xiang, who had accompanied him on the stage to increase her experience, quickly reminded him, "Master, it's time." Cough. Slowly opening his eyes, a happy smile bloomed on his face. Yuhaoran glanced at the noisy scene and the people who were still entering the venue. He coughed lightly. Unfortunately, in the face of his light cough that contained a trace of origin energy, many experts in the hall chose to ignore it and continued to reminisce and quarrel. Yuhaoran forcibly suppressed the displeasure that emerged in his heart and said with a smile on his face, "Seniors, Yuhaoran, am very grateful to all of you for traveling thousands of miles to participate in the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce's auction in Rydok City. Here, on behalf of myself and the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, I thank all of you for coming. I also wish all of you that your wishes will come true and you will return with a full load." Not only did they continue to reminisce and quarrel, they did not even look at him, completely ignoring his gratitude and congratulations just now. No matter how strong Yuhaoran's psychological quality was, he could not help but feel disappointed in the face of the rude attitude of the people in the hall. Therefore, Yuhaoran decided to skip the carefully prepared speech that could stir up the atmosphere of the scene and make people excited. He decided to directly start the auction of the items. He turned his head and nodded at Yun Xiang. Then, she took out a tray from her storage ring and walked to his side. She was worried and asked in a low voice, "Master, are you okay?" "Yun Xiang, this is the first lesson that I'm going to teach you. I'm going to let you know how to quickly adjust your state of mind and how to deal with this kind of situation when you are ignored." After shaking his head to indicate that he was fine, Yuhaoran looked at the chaotic hall and reminded her calmly. Then, he took out a pill bottle from his storage ring and placed it on the tray. He ignored the chaotic scene in the hall and shouted directly at the 36 private rooms on the second floor. "The Supreme Hua Pill of the 3rd grade, 1st grade can help a peak 9th grade Martial Saint and a 3rd Tribulation Quasi-Martial Honorable to break through to the Martial Honorable realm. The starting price of the Supreme Hua Pill of the 3rd grade, 1st grade is 3 spiritual veins of the 9th grade, lower grade. Each increment cannot be less than 1 spiritual vein of the 9th grade, lower grade, or 104th grade, 1st grade spiritual stones. Just like the 9th grade, 1st grade spiritual stones, the spiritual vein was also fixed at the 9th grade, lower grade. At the same time, the exchange rate of the spiritual vein was the same as that of the spiritual stones. A spiritual vein of the 9th grade, middle grade could be exchanged for 10 spiritual veins of the 9th grade, lower grade. A spiritual vein of the 9th grade, upper grade could be exchanged for 100 spiritual veins of the 9th grade, lower grade, and so on. However, when the spiritual vein of the 5th grade reached the spiritual vein, the exchange rate would increase by several times. After Yuhaoran took out the Supreme Hua Pill of the 3rd grade, 1st grade, and announced the starting price, the chaotic scene immediately quietened down. However, some of the sect leaders of the clans and second-rate sects who had been passed down for tens of thousands of years did not receive the treatment of a private room. Even the seats in the hall were forcibly taken by someone else. While they were unhappy, they were completely angered by Yuhaoran's attitude. The sect leader of the Blood Kill sect, Qian Sha, who was dressed in a blood-red robe and whose cultivation had reached the 1st Tribulation Quasi-Martial Honorable realm, interrupted the auction and questioned with a gloomy face. Chapter 13:10. In the auction hall. That's right. In the face of Thousand Kill's gloomy questioning, Yuhaoran, to everyone's surprise, directly nodded and admitted it. Sect leader Shi, the prince consort, looked down on you. What can you do? Although Thousand Kills was only the sect leader of a second-rate sect, he relied on the strange and ever-changing Phantom Thousand Kills secret technique to defeat and kill Second Tribulation quasi-martial venerable experts. Therefore, he had always put on the airs of a first-rate sect leader. Just now, not only did he directly ask Bien Xingrui to arrange the treatment of a private room, but after being rejected, he was also the one who made the most noise. Moreover, he secretly encouraged many people to start making trouble. The chaotic scene in the auction hall could not be calmed down, and a quarter of it had to do with 1,000 kills. This was also the reason why Yuhaoran directly admitted that he looked down on him, because he wanted to use the method of killing the chicken to scare the monkey, using 1,000 kills death as a warning to those who did not take him seriously, to let them know his methods and temper. Yuhaoran, I respectfully called you the Prince Consort because I gave face to the Emperor Qin of the Great Qin Empire, Emperor Qin. Facing Yuhaoran's merciless humiliation, 1,000 Kills' heart suddenly surged with endless killing intent. He shook his head and sneered with a sinister expression. If not for the protection of the Prince Consort, the people of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce would let you host the auction, and everyone here would tolerate you standing on the high platform. After hearing 1,000 Kills' sinister sneer, the patriarchs of the inherited families who were originally standing beside him immediately took a few steps back and looked at him with contempt in their eyes. In fact, 1,000 Kills' words just now should be reversed. If not for Yuhaoran, the 6 top sects and families like the Zhou family would not attend the wedding of an empire's princess. Therefore, the people present were quite speechless at 1,000 Kills' ridicule, which could be called idiotic. Many people also felt a trace of anger at his secret instigation. 1,000 Kills, I originally thought that as the sect master of a second-rate sect, you would be a very suitable target to kill a chicken to warn the monkeys. But now, it seemed that I was wrong. This Prince Consort has overestimated you. Yuhaoran, who was also speechless, could not help but shake his head in disappointment. Then, with a flash, he appeared in front of 1,000 Kills. 1,000 phantom slashes. Seeing Yuhaoran instantly appear before him, a cold glint flashed across 1,000 Kills' eyes. Immediately, he executed his famous secret technique, 1,000 phantom kills. Following 1,000 Kills' low roar, his body suddenly exploded, instantly forming 1,000 identical blood shadows. Then, the blood shadows surrounded and attacked like a storm, dyeing the entire hall into a sea of blood. The perfection boundary of the law of speed allowed Yuhaoran to quickly grab 1,000 Kills by the neck from the 1,000 blood shadows. Then, under 1,000 Kills' incredulous gaze, Yuhaoran directly destroyed his soul and severed his life force. Along with 1,000 Kills' corpse and storage ring, Yuhaoran directly threw them to one of the Chamber of Commerce's employees and instructed with a smile. Feed the corpse to your pet beast. The storage magic tool will be your reward for your hard work. As the sect leader of a second-rate sect and a peak First Tribulation quasi-martial venerable, he must have a lot of spirit stones and spirit veins in his storage Dharma artifact, as well as many pills and Dharma artifacts, as well as many rare treasures. Yuhaoran did not even blink when he gave such a precious storage magic tool to a mere martial king errand boy. While the crowd was envious of the Chamber of Commerce's employees' luck, they could not help but sigh at Yuhaoran's wealth. Many thanks for the Prince Consort's gift. Many thanks for the Prince Consort's gift. After repeatedly thanking Yuhaoran for his generous reward, the Chamber of Commerce's employee immediately took 1,000 Kills' corpse and left the hall. Then he went straight to the ordinary yellow dog he had just reared. His eyes occasionally flashed with a cold light as he looked at the crowd in the hall. At this moment, whether they were standing or sitting, whether they were the sect masters of first-rate sects or the patriarchs of inherited families, they were all obediently sitting or standing there. This was because they did not want to become the chicken that Yuhaoran killed to scare the monkey. Although 1,000 Kills' performance was very idiotic, his own strength was indeed very strong. Through the thunderous attack just now, he had successfully intimidated everyone. Thus, Yuhaoran directly returned to the high platform and continued the auction of the first item. Third tier, first grade supreme, Hua Pill. The auction begins now. 10-9 tier, lower grade, spiritual veins. As Yuhaoran announced the start of the auction, the patriarch of the Qian clan in the hall immediately offered a price that was more than 3 times the original price. Regarding this, the crowd was not shocked at all. This was because the Qin clan was the same as the three great chambers of commerce. They were a family that mainly relied on business. The patriarch, Qin Xiaohao, was already a third tribulation quasi-martial saint expert and urgently needed a third-tier, first-grade supreme Hua pill to break through to the martial saint realm. 12 ninth-tier, lower-grade spiritual veins. Although the Qin clan was rich, the experts that were able to participate in the auction were all people of high status. Everyone had made sufficient preparations in advance. Thus, in less than 3 seconds after Qin Xiaohao made his bid, someone in the hall immediately began to double the price. 15 ninth-tier, lower-grade spiritual veins. Turning his head to look at the person who was competing with him, Qin Xiaohao sneered and continued to double the price. 18 ninth-tier, lower-grade spiritual veins. Ignoring Qin Xiaohao's gaze, the expert who had just bid continued to bid. 28 ninth-tier, lower-grade spiritual veins. The double price showed that the person's wealth was not inferior to his. Immediately, Qin Xiaohao was enraged. He directly increased the price by 10 spiritual veins and then looked at his opponent provocatively. Faced with Qin Xiaohao's provocative bid, his opponent hesitated. After all, spiritual veins were different from spirit stones. Each low-grade, 9th-level spiritual vein could produce at least 30 million 9th-level, first-grade spirit stones. 28 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins could produce a total of 10 billion spirit stones. This was already the limit of what he could bear. Seeing that his opponent had unwillingly chosen to give up, a happy smile gradually appeared on Qin Xiaohao's face. However, before his smile could fully bloom, it was suddenly frozen by the sound of a bid. 29 ninth-tier, lower-grade spiritual veins. Qin Xiaohao angrily looked at the person who had just shouted the price. Then, a trace of reverence flashed in his eyes, and he took the initiative to give up the idea of continuing to bid. The opponent who could make Qin Xiaohao, who was a third tribulation quasi-martial saint, give up the bid was a young man who was about 20 years old and was only a 9th-grade martial saint. Looking at the young man who had a faint smile on his face and provocative eyes, Yu Haoran also had a smile on his face, but a trace of killing intent emerged in his heart. Because the young man who had frightened Qin Xiaohao and made him not dare to continue bidding was Qin Yu from the Yushu Temple. The reason he did so was to use the name of the Yushu Temple to lower the price of the auction item. Chapter 13:11. In the auction hall, Yu Haoran scanned the crowd in the hall and realized that ever since Qin Yue called out the price, some of the experts who were eager to try had chosen to lower their heads and remain silent. It was obvious that they had given up on competing for the third-grade, first-grade Hua Supreme Pill. The friend just now has already bid for 29 lower-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. I wonder if there are any friends who want to continue bidding. Fortunately, Yu Haoran had already expected this situation after the conflict with the earthly venerable. Therefore, he was not affected by the silence of the crowd at all. Suppressing the killing intent that had just emerged in his heart, he picked up the pill bottle on the tray and showed it to the crowd. Then he opened the pill bottle and poured out the pill and explained in more detail. Everyone, the third-grade, first-grade Hua Supreme Pill that I have refined is using the void pill condensation technique, which was passed down from the Middle Ages. Not only is the energy contained in the pill pure, but it is also more effective in assisting in breaking through to the martial venerable realm. Yu Haoran raised his hand and pointed at Qin Xiaohao, who had taken the initiative to give up on bidding and continued with encouragement and temptation. For example, if this senior is able to successfully bid for this pill, the success rate of breaking through to the martial venerable realm will be as high as 80%. After putting the pill back into the pill bottle, Yu Haoran exuded a strong sense of confidence. Moreover, I, Yu Haoran, am about to break through to the pill emperor realm. In the future, I will pursue higher-grade pills like the third-grade, first-grade Hua Supreme Pill. Perhaps I will not refine pills in the future. The effect that was far stronger than an ordinary third-grade, first-grade Hua Supreme pill had successfully aroused the desire of many peak ninth-grade martial saints and quasi-martial venerables. It was very likely that he would not refine the third-grade, first-grade Hua Supreme pill in the future. It was like a flame that directly ignited the desire in their hearts. 35 lower-grade, ninth-level spiritual veins. A peak third tribulation quasi-martial venerable realm rogue cultivator directly took out all of his assets to fight for it. As for whether he would offend the Yushu temple after this, as long as he relied on the supreme Huazuan pill to break through to the realm of martial venerable. Even if the Yushu temple wanted to take revenge, they would have to consider whether it was worth it. Even if the Yushu temple wanted to take revenge with the strength of a peerless martial venerable, he could just hide in the endless ocean islands. What could the Yushu temple do to him? The rogue cultivator took the initiative to break the pressure brought by the Yushu temple, which instantly ignited the burning desire of the people at the scene. Ignoring Qing Yu's increasingly gloomy face, they all joined the bidding. 38 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. 40 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. In just 3 minutes, the bidding price of the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill had already exceeded 59th-grade lower-rank 9 spiritual pulse, successfully squeezing into the top 5 in the history of the auction. Yu Haoran looked at Qing Yu with a smile, provoking her to continue bidding. In response, Qing Yu clenched her fists and her eyes burned with anger. She had no strength to participate in the bidding of the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill. Looking at the faint smile on Yu Haoran's face, Bian Xingrui's eyes revealed a look of admiration. If he had been in front of a Yushu temple's provocation just now, he would have chosen to compromise in the end. He would not have come up with such a fierce counterattack. 60 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. Just as the number of spiritual veins exceeded 50, the fierce bidding gradually slowed down, which also meant that the price that the people could afford was about to reach the limit. Therefore, Bian Xingrui and those who did not participate in the bidding thought that the final price would not exceed 60 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. However, the sudden sound of bidding from Private Room 32 directly shattered everyone's guesses. The distinguished guest in Private Room 32 has already bid 60 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. I wonder if there are any friends who want to continue bidding. Yu Haoran also did not expect that the owner of Private Room 32 would suddenly participate in the bidding. After all, in this auction, in addition to the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill, there were also third-grade, ninth-grade Huazuan pills. Therefore, he did not think that the experts in the private rooms would be interested in the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill. However, considering the experts and forces participating in this auction, he gradually understood the intention of the owner of Private Room 32. They probably did not have enough confidence to participate in the bidding for the third-grade, ninth-grade Huazuan pill. It would be better for them to take a step back and compete for the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill. 65 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. The owner of Private Room 29 also suddenly made a bid. Just like how Yu Haoran was able to guess the thoughts of the owner of Private Room 32, the owners of the other private rooms also quickly thought of this. Therefore, they knew that they could not compete with a top force like the Yushu Temple. Soon, the owners of private rooms also participated in the bidding. 60 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins was the final price that Yu Haoran offered for the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill. Therefore, in the face of the price that continued to compete, he did not continue to arouse the emotions of the people present. He only waited quietly for the final bidding result. 68 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. The owner of Private Room 32 did not want to be outdone and continued to raise the price. 77 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. The owner of Private Room 29 also raised the price. 71 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. 73 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. In the end, the owner of Private Room 29 successfully bid for the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill with the sky-high price of 81 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins. Using the method of wrapping origin energy, he sent the pill bottle containing the third-grade, first-grade Huazuan pill to Bian Xingrue. Then, he was responsible for the transaction of the supreme Huazuan pill and the spiritual veins. After Bian Xingrue returned with the storage device containing the 81 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins, Yu Haoran took out the second auction item. It was a sword that had reached the upper grade of the Honorable Realm. A complete upper grade of the Honorable Realm sword. The Absolute Soul sword has a sleeping spirit. It contains 49 offensive formations and 18 defensive formations. It can be used to communicate with the spirit and refine it into a life sword. It can also be used as an inheritance treasure of a sect or family. Reaching out and flicking the sword in his hand, Yu Haoran explained the specific structure of the upper grade of the Honorable Realm sword in detail. Although they knew in advance that Yu Haoran would auction a few Honorable Realm weapons in addition to the top elixirs, they were immediately excited when they saw the sword that had reached the upper grade of the Honorable Realm and had a sleeping spirit. Glancing at the people in the hall, and then looking up at the 36 private rooms, Yu Haoran directly inserted the sealed Absolute Soul sword into the high platform, and then gave the bidding price that everyone present found unacceptable. Chapter 13:12. In the auction hall. After hearing the price Yu Haoran gave, there was a gasp in the auction hall. If the price of the upper Honorable Realm Breaking Soul Sword was a lower rank 9 spiritual vein, the people present could still accept this price. However, a spiritual stone of the first rank 9 spiritual vein was not just cheap, it was a humiliation to the Breaking Soul Sword and Sword Principle. Damn it! Seeing that Yu Haoran had ruined the upper Honorable Realm Breaking Soul Sword and humiliated the Upright Sword Principle, the Sky Sword Sect Master immediately cursed with a ferocious look. After all, the Sky Sword Sect was not only a pure sword cultivator, but also the orthodox sword principle in the eyes of countless sword cultivators in Tianxin Continent. Yu Haoran's humiliation of sword principle was equivalent to a humiliation to the Sky Sword Sect. If Yu Haoran hadn't killed the Bloodkill Gates Sect Master 1,000 kills with lightning speed, the Sky Sword Sect Master would definitely have scolded him. At the same time, the two martial honorable swordsmen standing behind him looked at Yu Haoran with a gloomy look. From time to time, the thought of challenging him appeared in their eyes. However, as some of the people who had attended the wedding, they could understand Yu Haoran's intention to ruin the upper Honorable Realm Breaking Soul Sword. After all, daring to destroy the natal sword that he had painstakingly refined meant that he had completely broken off with Sword Principle. It was completely normal to humiliate Sword Principle by ruining the Breaking Soul Sword. The auction for the upper Honorable Realm Breaking Soul Sword will now begin. 15 lower rank, 9 spiritual veins. After Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction for the Breaking Soul Sword, the Sky Sword Sect Master used all his assets to raise the price of the Breaking Soul Sword. In response, Yu Haoran only smiled indifferently. Although the Sword Principle Providence had rudely broken the natal sword of thousands of sword cultivators in order to protect the character of the Sky Sword, as the #1 martial art, Sword Principle was still a cultivation path that countless people yearned for and pursued. Even if you were to lower the price of the Absolute Soul Sword, the final transaction price would probably not lose out to a Stage 3 first-grade Huazuan Dan. Just as he had guessed, the price of the Absolute Soul Sword began to rise. In the end, the price of the Absolute Soul Sword quickly exceeded the price of 60 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. 73 low-grade, 9th-order spiritual veins. In the end, the owner of room 31 gave a sky-high price that made everyone give up on bidding. Congratulations to the owner of private room 31 for successfully obtaining the soul-breaking sword, a high-grade venerable realm weapon. As he loudly announced the winner of the auction, Yu Haoran wrapped the item in elemental energy and sent it to Bian Xingrue. A complete upper-grade venerable realm saber weapon with a dormant weapon spirit, 64 offensive formations, and 18 defensive formations. After receiving the storage device from Bien Rui that contained the spiritual veins, Yu Haoran took the opportunity to take out the third auction item. After introducing it in detail, like the absolute soul sword, he gave a price that made the Sky Sword sect master furious. The Sea-Sealing Saber, an upper-grade Venerable Realm Saber weapon, is auctioned for 3 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. Each bid cannot be lower than 1 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual vein or 100 first-grade 4th-level spiritual stones. You will definitely pay a painful price for a humiliating sword principle in the future. The Sky Sword sect master gritted his teeth and muttered to himself when he saw the huge difference between the price of saber weapon and a sword weapon in Yu Haoran's bid. 60 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. The owner of Private Room 27 went straight for the Sea-Sealing Saber, an upper-grade Venerable Realm Saber weapon. At the same time, he gave a sky-high price to deter some people who wanted a bid for the Sea-Sealing Saber. In the end, the Sea-Sealing Saber was sold for 60 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. Yu Haoran did not resent the owner of Private Room 27. This was because compared to the hundreds of millions of sword cultivators in the mysterious Tianxian continent, there were far fewer saber cultivators and even fewer truly famous experts. Therefore, the price of 60 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins was within the range that he expected and could afford. After the Sea-Sealing Saber was sold, Yu Haoran paused for a minute and took out a fist-sized, dark green pearl. He then began to introduce it in detail. The Sea God's Pearl is one of the overlords of the South Sea. It's condensed from the essence of a sea snake that's at the peak of the 9th-level Venerable Realm. Not only can it improve the physique of a water attribute martial artist, but also has the powerful defensive ability of a low-grade Venerable Realm defensive artifact. More importantly, this Sea God's Pearl contains a drop of the sea snake's life essence before it passed away. It can help a pet beast with the divine dragon bloodline directly advance by 1 or 2 grades. After hearing Yu Haoran's introduction of the Sea God's Pearl, Bien Rui couldn't help but light up. Although the Sea God's Pearl was an auction item provided by Heavenly Earth, the Chamber of Commerce's identification and understanding of the Sea God's Pearl was limited to its effects of improving and defending. They did not know that the Sea God's Pearl actually contained a drop of the sea snake's life essence. At this moment, he finally understood why Yu Haoran had placed the Sea God's Pearl in the auction order after the 3rd level, 1st level Supreme Transformation Elixir, the Upper Venerable Realm Soul Severing Sword, and the Sea-Sealing Saber. At this moment, he was even more aware that the Sea God's Pearl, which was originally estimated to be auctioned for at most 20 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins, would probably be sold for a sky-high price in the end. It would not only allow Heavenly Earth to earn a large sum of spiritual veins, but also further enhance his status in the Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, Bien Rui looked at Yu Haoran with gratitude. The starting price of the Sea God's Pearl is 5 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. The price of each auction cannot be lower than 1 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual vein or 104th level, 1st-level spiritual stones. The auction for the Sea God's Pearl begins now. Due to the Dragon Clan's desolate nature, they left behind many descendants with the Divine Dragon's bloodline. Therefore, the number of exotic beasts in the Tianxian continent with the Divine Dragon's bloodline was the highest. This led to most of the warriors' pet beasts containing the Divine Dragon's bloodline. Therefore, in the face of the Sea God's Pearl that contained a drop of the Divine Dragon's life essence, even the owners of the private rooms began to participate in the auction. The Sea God's Pearl was finally sold at the price of 63 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. This made Yu Haoran secretly heave a sigh of relief, and also made Bien Rui smile widely. As the Sea God's Pearl was an auction item provided by Heavenly Earth, the spiritual veins that were auctioned in the end could only belong to the Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, after sending the Sea God's Pearl to Bien Rui, Yu Haoran took out the 5th auction item. Looking at the pill bottle that Yu Haoran took out, The reactions of the people in the hall were relatively calm. However, most of the people in the private rooms immediately became nervous. This was because, according to the information that they had received beforehand, there were a total of 4 types of pills among the 8 auction items that Yuharan took out. According to the value of the pills, it was very likely that the pill bottle that had just been taken out contained a 3rd level, 9th level Supreme pill. Chapter 13:13. In the auction hall, Yuharan could feel the tension coming from most of the private rooms. He did not let them wait too long and opened the pill bottle directly. As he let the special fragrance from the pill bottle drift in the auction hall, he introduced the origin of the treasure in the pill bottle in detail, as well as its various powerful effects. A drop of rank 1 grade 1 absolute beginning ginseng has the powerful effect of a rank 3 grade 1 supreme Huazuan pill to assist in breaking through to the martial honor realm. At the same time, it can greatly improve one's physique and increase one's potential and comprehension. More importantly, using the ginseng liquid to break through to the martial honor realm will not have the slightest side effect. It was different from the auction of the rank 3 grade 1 supreme Huazuan pill, and it was also different from the martial honor realm upper soul breaking sword and sea-sealing saber. When they heard that the pill bottle contained a drop of rank 1 grade 1 absolute beginning ginseng, some of the top young experts with monstrous talent immediately became excited. Their breathing gradually became heavier as they looked at the pill bottle. 4 geniuses with monstrous talent. Breaking through to the martial honor realm was not difficult. However, the reason why they had been suppressing the breakthrough was because they hoped to continuously increase their accumulation and then use the enormous hidden dragon luck to advance to a higher martial honor realm in one fell swoop. At the same time, they would also have the hope of breaking through to the Emperor Wu realm in the future. The rank 1 grade 1 absolute beginning ginseng's ginseng liquid was the best treasure to increase one's accumulation. Prince Consort, where did you get the absolute beginning ginseng's ginseng liquid? In the hall, a second tribulation quasi-martial honor realm rogue cultivator who was proficient in alchemy asked a question that he should not have asked in his excitement. After all, as a rank 1 grade 1 absolute beginning ginseng that could immediately become a martial honor, its true value was comparable to a martial emperor upper soul weapon. No matter who obtained such a heaven-defying treasure, they would all carefully keep it, afraid that the news would leak and cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, when he felt the strange gazes of the people around him, the rogue cultivator immediately wanted to bow and apologize, but he was interrupted by Yuharan's answer. Some time ago, I was lucky enough to enter the Hidden Dragon Wonderland, unique to the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, to train, and obtained it from a young man who had just broken through to the martial honor realm. At this point, Yuharan suddenly shook his head and sighed. It's a pity that the young man from the God clan only had 2 drops of ginseng liquid. He did not have any rank 1 or rank 1 absolute primordium ginseng liquid. Otherwise, I would definitely have used enough ginseng liquid to refine a peak pill that could greatly increase the strength of a martial saint. Prince Consort, could the young man from the God clan you mentioned be the God clan of the ancient God clan and Devil clan that replaced the ancient divine beasts? Compared to the thirst of the people in the hall for the ginseng liquid, the owners of the more than 10 private rooms at the top of the list were focused on the young Protoss he had just mentioned. Yuharan raised his head and looked at the number 3 private room who had asked about the origin of the Protoss youth. It was another old ancestor with real power from a Zhou family. In response to Senior Zhou's question, it is the god race that once ruled the ancient era for millions of years. Prince Consort, the news that the remnants of the god race still exist is too shocking. Are you 100% certain? Old ancestor Zhou could not help but question Yuharan's reply. Yuharan knew very well what kind of impact the news of the remnants of the god race that had disappeared for almost 2 centuries would have on the people present. Thus, he did not care at all about old ancestor Zhou's doubts and confirmed further. Senior Zhou, because this junior killed the god race youth, and caused the secret realm to close, the powerful experts of the god race took revenge. Among the people present at the time, there were the elite disciples of the noble families of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, as well as senior brother Tungyun of the heavenly martial sect. Prince Consort, even if a few remnants of the god race appear in the profound sky continent, how much can they cause? Thus, you should quickly announce the starting price of the absolute beginning ginseng. Compared to the importance the owner of the room placed on the remnants of the god race, the experts of the sects and families in the hall who did not understand the terror of the god race were more concerned with the price of the liquid and wanted to know who the liquid would belong to. Thus, a prodigy from the Wu family could not help but urge loudly. Using the liquid of the absolute beginning ginseng to leak the news of the god race's existence was a plan that Yu Haoran had thought of on the spot. The final effect was not bad. At the same time, to ensure the smooth progress of the auction, it was not good to continue revealing and discussing more about the god race. Thus, Yu Haoran nodded when faced with the urging of the Wu clan's monstrous genius, and then he gave the starting bid for the primordial mysterious ginseng liquid. The starting price of a drop of liquid of the absolute beginning ginseng is 10 lower rank 9 spirit veins. The price of each bid cannot be lower than 1 lower rank 9 spirit vein or 100 lower rank 4 spirit stones. Yu Haoran announced loudly after sweeping his gaze across the crowd and the 36 rooms on the second floor. The auction will now begin. 11 lower rank 9 spirit veins. Just as Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction, Qin Yu from the Yushu Temple gave the starting price and stood up to make a request to the crowd. Everyone, this drop of liquid is very important to Qin Yu. I hope that everyone can give up on bidding for the sake of the Yushu Temple. Qin Yu will be eternally grateful. In the face of Qin Yu's request, or more accurately, a threat, everyone present could not help but hesitate. It was different from a threat during the bidding for the supreme transformation elixir. That was a small way for Qin Yu to take revenge on Yu Haoran. Although he would be very angry at the person who ruined his revenge plan, he would not necessarily take revenge afterwards. However, a drop of liquid of the absolute beginning ginseng was different. This was not just a means to take revenge on Yu Haoran, but also related to his hopes of reaching a higher realm in the future. Whoever dared to compete with him for the liquid would be his mortal enemy. According to the style of the Yushu Temple, Qin Yu was likely to take revenge immediately after the auction. He might even take revenge on the spot. Seeing that everyone in the hall chose to remain silent because of fear of the Yushu Temple, Qin Yu looked directly at the 36 rooms on the second floor. Because only they were really not afraid of the Yushu Temple and dared to compete with him for the liquid. Whoever dares to compete with Qin Yu for the liquid is an enemy of the Yushu Temple. Seeing that Qin Yu was determined to get the liquid, the terrestrial venerable, as his master, immediately gave him strong support. Qin Yu broke the rules of the auction, which could be explained by being young and ignorant. However, the terrestrial venerable's threat just now was a blatant contempt for the heavenly world chamber of commerce. This made Bian Xingrui's face instantly gloomy. At this moment, he hated the terrestrial venerable's overbearingness and could not help but resent Wu Siqing, who had left the Twin Ox Mount. Chapter 13-14. In the auction house, even the terrestrial venerable, the master of the underground palace of the Yushu Temple, took the initiative to support his disciple. Everyone at the scene immediately looked at the high platform. They wanted to see how Yu Haoran would deal with the terrestrial venerable and Qin Yu's means of breaking the rules. In the face of Qin Yu and the terrestrial venerable's shameless means of revenge, Yu Haoran did not show any anger. He still had a faint smile on his face. Looking up at the number 1 private room on the second floor, he said with a chuckle, "Terrestrial venerable, since you and your disciple broke the rules of the auction first, then don't blame me for using rogue means to fight back." Then, he nodded to a beautiful maidservant under the high platform. 80 lower, 9th level spiritual veins. After receiving Yu Haoran's nod, The beautiful maidservant immediately gave a drop of upper heaven-level spiritual veins possessed by a drop of ginseng liquid. You're just a lowly maid in the 9th level of martial arts grandmaster realm, let alone 80 lower 9th level spiritual veins. I'm afraid she can't even take out one lower 10th level spiritual vein. You're not just cheating, you're breaking the rules of the auction house. Seeing that the beautiful maidservant not only participated in the auction, but also gave a price that he could not afford, Qing Yu immediately questioned him angrily. In the face of Qing Yu's questioning, Yu Haoran, who instantly stopped smiling, said with a cold expression, "Qing Yu, your master humiliated Yunxiang as a lowly maid. My way of fighting back was just more vicious abuse. That was because I had no choice but to be inferior. But Yu Haoran threatened Qing Yu with a strong, murderous aura, which was completely tangible, directly shrouding Qing Yu. If you dare to say another word to humiliate her, even if the terrestrial venerable, the shameless old guy, does it himself, I will definitely destroy your soul." Without giving Qing Yu any chance to fight back, Yu Haoran, who instantly withdrew his strong, murderous aura, quickly replaced the indifference with a smile and continued to speak. Before the auction, according to the agreement between this prince consort and the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, no matter how high the final transaction price is, they will not take a penny of commission from the 8 items that belong to this prince consort. In other words, the final result of the bidding for this drop of ginseng liquid is nothing more than switching from my left hand to my right hand. I won't suffer any losses. So, if you want to take revenge on me through shameless means of threatening everyone present, then this prince consort will give you a sentence. Child, don't be silly. Wash up and go to bed. Under normal circumstances, the shameless method Yu Haoran had just used could be said to be extremely shameless and annoying. However, not only did the people present not have the slightest bit of disgust, but they also felt that Yu Haoran, who had revealed his true nature, was very cute. Ha! Of course, they were also amused by the last sentence Yu Haoran used to humiliate Qing Yu. At the same time, they couldn't help but roar with laughter. After seeing Yu Haoran's counterattack, Bian Xingrui, who looked gloomy, admired him and had a better understanding of how to deal with the emergency of the auction. Yu Haoran's threat and humiliation and the laughter of the people present made Qing Yu's eyes burn with rage. He clenched his fists and stared straight at Yu Haoran. He couldn't wait to rush up to the high platform and directly cut Yu Haoran into pieces. However, thinking that his master had once said that Yu Haoran was protected by powerful guardians, Qing Yu, who cherished his life, could only suppress the murderous aura in his heart by continuous deep breaths. Then he calmly stepped out of the hall and directly returned to the number 1 private room on the 2nd floor. A coward without a trace of courage. How dare you dream of becoming a powerful expert like Emperor Wu in the future? I think you're daydreaming. Just as Qing Yu pushed open the door of the number 1 private room and was about to step into the room, Yu Haoran mocked him without lowering his voice. Bang! As the door slammed heavily in the auction hall, Qing Yu finally endured Yu Haoran's mockery. Ahem! After clearing his throat, Yu Haoran waited for the people's attention to return to the high platform in him. Because the terrestrial venerable of the Yushu Temple and Qing Yu shamelessly broke the rules of the auction, the result of the ginseng liquid auction just now is invalid. Next, let's start the auction again for a drop of primordial ginseng liquid. 40 lower, level 9, spiritual meridians. As soon as Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction, Forefather Zhou from the number 3 private room directly bid 4 times the price. The purpose of this was to show that he was determined to get the ginseng liquid and to indirectly support Yu Haoran. 50 lower, level 9, spiritual meridians. Although the owner of the number 5 private room didn't have the intention to support Yu Haoran, he still showed that he was determined to get the ginseng liquid. After all, the results of the Hidden Dragon battle not only affected the fate of the participants, but also had unimaginable benefits to the forces behind the participants. For example, if Yu Haoran was able to seize the position of champion in the Southern Territory's Hidden Dragon rankings, then not only would he be able to obtain the enhancement of enormous hidden dragon karmic luck, the Yu clan, 100-foot sect, and Grand Qin Empire that stood behind him would similarly obtain the protection of the hidden dragon karmic luck. And even more peerless and monstrous geniuses would appear in the future. This was also one of the important reasons why the Emperor Qin agreed to such a hasty wedding and persuaded him to participate in the Hidden Dragon Wonderland trial. It was to deepen their relationship so that they could share more of the protection of the Hidden Dragon fate. 60 lower level 9 spiritual meridians. The owner of the number 4 private room followed. 65 lower level 9 spiritual meridians. 70 lower level 5 spiritual meridians. In less than 30 seconds, the price of the primordial ginseng rose to 80 lower level 9 spiritual meridians. This made everyone admire Yu Haoran's estimation of the ginseng liquid's true value. At the same time, they were even more disgusted by the Yushu Temple's bullying methods. After all, the difference in value between 11 and 80 lower level 9 spiritual meridians was too great. This was no longer an auction that broke the rules, but a blatant robbery. When the price of the primordial ginseng liquid exceeded 80 lower level 9 spiritual meridians, the number and speed of the auction started to slow down. It wasn't that the bidders lacked enough spiritual meridians, but that they didn't want to spend too many spiritual meridians on the ginseng liquid and affect the auction of more precious treasures. 88 lower level 9 spiritual meridians. This is my bottom line. Forefather Zhou from number 3 private room directly increased the number of spiritual meridians by 3 and expressed his attitude towards the next auction. Chapter 13-15. Inside the auction hall. 90 low-grade, level 9 spirit veins. Just as Forefather Zhou gave a low price that he was willing to accept, the owners of the private rooms who had been competing with him immediately fell silent after careful consideration. This meant that they had given up on competing for the ginseng elixir. Thus, Yu Haoran opened his mouth and was about to start the countdown when he heard a surprising bid. He was surprised because, other than the fact that someone was able to continue bidding, the bid had come from the hall. The unexpected bid immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the private rooms. Everyone's gaze immediately turned to a black-cloaked person standing in the corner of the hall. Because most of the people in the auction hall were experts from the top factions of the Tianxian continent. They were players who could set the rules of the game. They were also a group of people who were used to being domineering. Thus, when they could not see the true face of the bidder, many people immediately used their divine perception to forcibly pass through the cover of the black cloak. They wanted to see the background of the black cloak person who dared to compete with Forefather Zhou for the ginseng elixir. However, as painful screams came from the auction hall, Yu Haoran, who did not rashly use his divine perception to check, was shocked to find that all his divine perception to check the background of the black cloak person had been burned by the black flame emitted by the black cloak. Black Nirvana Flame. An expert from room 7 who also possessed an exotic flame recognized the true origin of the black flame through the exotic flame that had already developed intelligence the moment his divine thought was destroyed by the black flame. Black Nirvana Flame. A terrifying flame that ranked 7th among the hundreds of flames in the Tianxian continent. A newly born black Nirvana Flame already had the power of a martial honorable. A mature black Nirvana Flame had the power of Emperor Wu's almighty realm. At the same time, the black Nirvana Flame was one of the few special flames that could become a divine flame. Thus, when he heard the owner of private room 7 shout out the origin of the black flame, Yu Haoran finally understood why the yin-yang flame origin in his dantian was so excited when the black cloak emitted the black flame. After all, as an yin-yang flame origin that could devour and merge all the energy in the world, it had a stronger impulse to devour and merge flames of the same origin. Yu Haoran, suppress the impulses of the yin-yang heavenly flames in your dantian. You must not provoke that black-clothed man. Just as Yu Haoran figured out the reason for the yin-yang heavenly flame's excitement, The thawing in his sea of consciousness suddenly reminded him. Why? Yu Haoran asked. He didn't ask because he wanted to snatch the black nirvana heavenly flame from his opponent, but because of the seriousness in Thawing's warning. That's because it's the black nirvana flame. It's just that it used a special method to transform into a human body. It also has the terrifying power of Emperor Wu. Thawing explained with a serious expression. After hearing Thawing's explanation, Yu Haoran couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He looked at the black-clothed man with a look of dread. After all, the Heavenly Way was still monitoring and suppressing Emperor Wu, but the black nirvana heavenly flame could still act without restraint. This was enough to show that its cultivation and strength had probably reached the peak of Emperor Wu's realm and could resist the suppression of the Heavenly Way. Seeing Yu Haoran staring at the black nirvana heavenly flame, Thawing quickly reminded him, Yu Haoran, don't pay too much attention to the black nirvana heavenly flame. Don't make it hostile. Quickly withdrawing his gaze from the black nirvana heavenly flame, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and used a deep breath and a strong state of mind to suppress it. He finally calmed down the shock in his heart. Then, he slowly opened his eyes and was about to open his mouth to announce the countdown. The owner of Room 19 was greedy for the power and preciousness of the black nirvana heavenly flame. He wanted to use the excuse of his divine sense being burned to forcefully seize the black nirvana heavenly flame. Brat, you dare to use the heavenly flame to burn this sovereign's divine sense? I think you're tired of living. Accompanied by an angry shout, a sharp sword chi emitting a terrifying aura shot out from Room 19 and went straight for the black-clothed man formed by the black nirvana heavenly flame. Yu Haoran looked at Room 19 with disdain and couldn't help but shake his head. Even the Heavenly Way was unable to suppress the black nirvana heavenly flame. How could a mere peak 6th grade martial saint like you deal with it? Facing the sharp sword chi, the black-clothed man stretched out his black and shiny left hand and directly grabbed the sharp sword chi. Then his left hand gently clenched and the sharp sword chi instantly turned into white smoke. Then, the black-clothed man, formed by the black nirvana heavenly flame, raised his head and looked at Yu Haoran before charging towards Room 19 like lightning. According to the rules of the auction, it was forbidden to use force during the auction. So, when they saw the black-clothed man charging towards Room 19, everyone's gaze turned towards the stage. They wanted to see what Yu Haoran's attitude would be. Wanted to covet the black nirvana heavenly flame, you deserve to die. Facing everyone's gaze, Yu Haoran indifferently gave himself an attitude. Although the black-clothed man had displayed the strength of a peak 3rd grade martial saint when he destroyed the sharp sword chi, the owner of Room 19 was not only a peak 6th grade martial saint expert, but he also came from the Ma clan that had existed for nearly 10 million years. So, when faced with Yu Haoran's attitude and his judgment of the black-clothed man's strength, the Sky Sword sect master, who had finally found an opportunity, immediately mocked loudly. Yu Haoran, as the auctioneer in charge of the auction, you must have sharp eyesight and rich experience. The judgment you gave the black-clothed man just now not only shows your arrogance and ignorance, it also proves that you don't have the ability to host the auction. Looking at the Sky Sword sect master with disdain, Yu Haoran's lips slightly curled up as he mocked. You self-righteous idiot. Yu Haoran, what did you say? Hearing Yu Haoran's mocking, the Sky Sword sect master immediately stood up in rage and shouted with a sinister expression. However, when he saw the door to Room 19 being reopened and the black-clothed man, whose aura was as calm as water, as if he had never made a move, left the room, his expression couldn't help but change. Because the black-clothed man who left Room 19 did not close the door, everyone could clearly see that there was no one in the room. There were no sounds of fighting, nor were there any energy fluctuations. While everyone was shocked by the black-clothed man's terrifying strength, they also felt incomparable admiration for Yu Haoran's astonishing eyesight. As for the experts from Room 10, their gazes were filled with fear as they looked at the black-clothed man. Even the Zhou clan's ancestor, whose cultivation had reached the level of Quasi-Emperor Wu, was unable to silently kill a peak 6th grade martial saint expert. Chapter 13:16. In the auction venue. Idiot. Seeing that the black nirvana heavenly flame had returned to its original position, Yu Haoran mocked the sect leader of the Sky Sword Sect again. Then, he ignored the sect leader of the Sky Sword Sect, who had a livid expression, and began to read out the countdown for the auction. Not only did 90 rank 9 spiritual veins far exceed the value of a drop of ginseng liquid, but the terrifying strength displayed by the black-clothed man had also completely dispelled some of the experts' fantasies about the ginseng liquid. Therefore, after 3 countdowns, the ginseng liquid was finally obtained by the black-clothed man, formed by the black nirvana heavenly fire. Yu Haoran accepted the storage dharma artifact that the black-robed man had transformed from the dark nirvana mystical fire had thrown to him. Yu Haoran acted as if he trusted the dark nirvana mystical fire and put it away into the domain tower without inspecting it. The chaos caused by the black-clothed man, formed by the black nirvana heavenly fire, instantly quieted down after Yu Haoran took out the 6th pill bottle. Everyone's eyes were on the pill bottle in his hand. Yu Haoran chuckled and opened the pill bottle. He poured out the pill bottle and introduced it to the crowd. Rank 3, Rank 9, Supreme Hua Pill. Not only does it have a 90% success rate in helping one break through to the martial venerable realm, it also has the powerful effect of increasing one's cultivation level. After showing the stage 3, 9th grade Supreme Hua Pill in his hand to everyone present, Yu Haoran kept the pill back into the pill bottle. Then he placed the pill bottle on the tray and began to give the starting bid for the stage 3, 9th grade Supreme Hua Pill. The starting bid for the rank 3, rank 9 Supreme Hua Pill is 20 rank 9 spiritual veins. Each bid cannot be lower than a rank 3, rank 9 spiritual vein, and cannot be lower than 10,000 rank 4, rank 1 spiritual stones. The auction starts now. 60 rank 9 spiritual veins. Just as Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction, Qing Yu from room 1 immediately gave a high price. However, the owners of the rooms who were not afraid of the Yushu Temple completely ignored Qing Yu's bid and immediately gave a higher price. 70 rank 9 spiritual veins. 75 rank 9 spiritual veins. In less than a minute, the bidding price of the 3rd step, 9th grade Huazuan Dan, directly broke through 100 lines. In the end, when it reached 113 lines, the bidding price began to slow down. 120 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. The earthly venerable from the Yushu Temple in room 1 not only personally participated in the auction, but also directly increased the price by 7 spiritual meridians, fully demonstrating his determination to obtain the level 3, grade 9 supreme transformation pill. It was a pity that the owners of the top 10 private rooms were not afraid of the Yushu Temple's power, nor did they care about the revenge of the terrestrial venerable. So, just as the Earth Venerate finished bidding, Forefather Zhou's bid sounded. 123 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. 130 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. Seeing Forefather Zhou disrespect him and the Yushu Temple, the earthly venerable's confident expression immediately darkened. He gritted his teeth and continued to bid. He couldn't help but threaten. Everyone, why don't you give me and the Yushu Temple some face? 133 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. In the face of the earthly venerable's threat, Forefather Zhou laughed and provoked him after bidding again. Earthly venerable, as long as you swear to give up the next auction, I can give you this 3rd step, 9th order supreme transformation pill. Zhou family elder, could it be that you want to compete with me in terms of wealth? The earthly venerable provoked Forefather Zhou in a sinister tone. I'll accompany you to the end. Due to the influence of the heavenly Tao, the Zhou family didn't accumulate many high-grade spiritual veins. However, it wasn't a problem to casually take out hundreds or thousands of 7th order, 8th order, and 9th order spiritual veins. Therefore, Forefather Zhou fought back fearlessly in the face of the earthly venerable's provocation. Earthly venerable, the life essence pill concerns whether the heavenly venerable can enter the time turbulence to obtain the ritual implement left behind by the God King. I hope you can consider the overall situation. In the face of Forefather Zhou's counterattack, the earthly venerable wanted to immediately bid back, but a martial venerable subordinate's reminder suddenly rang out in his mind. He thought of the importance of the God King ritual implement in the time turbulence to whether the Yushu Temple could conquer the world in the future. When he thought of the heavenly venerable's ruthless methods, the earthly venerable could only take a deep breath and give up the bidding for the third step, Ninth Order Supreme Transformation Pill, with slight humiliation. Loud thunder, but little rain. Just like Qing Wei, he is also a coward who lacks courage. Originally, Yu Haoran had thought that the earthly venerable, who had been angered by Forefather Zhou, would make the final auction price of the third step, Ninth Order Supreme Transformation Pill, reach an astronomical figure. However, the earthly venerable's silence made him slightly unhappy. He couldn't help but mock him. The earthly venerable's murderous gaze pierced through the private room's barrier and stared fixedly at Yu Haoran, who was standing on the high platform. At this moment, he wanted nothing more than to rush to the high platform and tear Yu Haoran into pieces. However, when he thought that the most important origin life pill had yet to appear, he could only temporarily suppress the murderous intent in his heart and close his eyes, choosing to turn a blind eye. You're just bullying ordinary people with no foundation. It seems that the Yushu Temple really doesn't live up to its name. Yu Haoran continued to mock him with a cold smile when he felt the earthly venerable's murderous gaze. Then, he looked up at the 34 private rooms on the second floor and began to ask if there were anyone who wanted to continue bidding. 133 lower-level 9 spirit veins had far exceeded the value of the third step, Ninth Order Supreme Transformation Pill. At the same time, there were some experts who wanted to continue bidding. Their real target was the second step, First Order Origin Life Pill. Therefore, no one responded to Yu Haoran's interrogation. In the end, the third step, Ninth Order Supreme Transformation Pill, was sold for 130 lower-level 9 spirit veins. After receiving the storage device from Bian Xingrui, Yu Haoran turned his head and motioned for Yunxiang to leave the high platform. After Yunxiang left the high platform, Yu Haoran solemnly took out the sword that had reached the lower level of the Emperor Realm from his storage ring. A complete lower level of the Emperor Realm sword. The cloud-piercing sword has a sleeping weapon spirit. It contains 108 offensive formations and 81 defensive formations. Following Yu Haoran's detailed introduction and the opening of the cloud-piercing sword seal, the people in the hall and the private rooms all stood up and turned to look at him. Even Bian Xingrui, who was in charge of the auction, had an incomparably shocked expression in his eyes. This was because when they were discussing the auction, although Yu Haoran had mentioned that there would be 4 magic weapons, he and the president had always thought that they would only be supreme-level magic weapons. At most, they would only be supreme-level magic weapons. Chapter 13-17. In the auction hall, Bian Xingrui's heart was filled with regret as he stared at the sword in Yu Haoran's hand. If he'd known earlier that Yu Haoran's 7th item was a low-grade Great Emperor sword, he would have asked for the details of each item when they were discussing the details of the auction at the Prince Consort's residence. In that case, with his deep friendship with Yu Haoran, and out of respect for Yin Xiang, he would definitely be able to get the sword at the lowest price. But it was too late for regrets. Bian Xingrui had no choice but to summon the 2 martial honors in charge of the auction hall. He had them gather the spirit veins and treasures as quickly as possible so that they could participate in the auction. Staring at the sword in Yu Haoran's hand, the Sky Sword sect master clenched his fists and trembled as he commanded. 2 Grand Elders, take out everything you've collected. No matter what, we must get the cloud-piercing sword. Yes, sect leader. They looked at each other and saw the desire in each other's eyes. Then, one of the martial saint's swordsmen replied excitedly. After resealing the sword, Yu Haoran casually inserted the cloud-piercing sword into the high platform, giving everyone time to adapt and prepare. When he felt that the atmosphere was about right, he made a bid that infuriated the Sky Sword Sect leader and stunned everyone. The starting price for the complete Cloud Piercer sword is 1/9 level, 1st grade Spirit Stone. The starting price for each auction cannot be lower than 1/9 level, 1st grade Spirit Stone. Yu Haoran, do you want to make an enemy out of the billions of sword cultivators in the Tianxian continent? The sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect angrily rushed to the bottom of the stage and glared at Yu Haoran as he threatened. Scram immediately. Otherwise, I will cancel the auction for the cloud-piercing sword. Yu Haoran coldly threatened the sect master of the Sky Sword sect who had fled to the bottom of the high platform. Faced with Yu Haoran's threat of canceling the auction for the cloud-piercing sword, the Heavenly Sword sect's sectmaster was at a loss for words. If Yu Haoran really had to cancel the auction for the cloud-piercing sword because of him, he would probably be torn to shreds by the countless frenzied experts present. However, if he did not think of a way to fight back, then Yu Haoran's humiliation of the way of the sword would not only severely hurt the young warrior's enthusiasm for the cultivation of the way of the sword, but it would also change many young warriors' choice of martial arts. This result would not only prevent the Earth Sword and Man Sword from gathering more sword luck, it would also affect the Sky Sword sect's chances of reaching a higher position in the future. Just as the Sky Sword sect leader didn't know how to respond to Yu Haoran's threat, Qin Yu suddenly spoke up. Everyone, please listen to Qin Yu. Please speak your mind. The Sky Sword sect leader was very grateful that Qin Yu resolved the awkward situation in time. He immediately cooperated with Qin Yu's plan. The reason why Yu Haoran has lowered the price of the cloud-piercing sword so low is because he wants to use this method to ruthlessly humiliate the way of the sword and dispel the enthusiasm of the billions of sword cultivators on the profound sky continent towards the way of the sword. At the same time, he knows that the final price will reach an astronomical figure because of the preciousness of a low-grade Emperor-grade sword. This is killing two birds with one stone. Qin Yu nodded in satisfaction at the tactful cooperation of the Sky Sword sect leader and continued to suggest. Since that's the case, why don't we have one friend bid a 1st grade, 9th level Spirit Stone and win the low-grade Emperor-grade cloud-piercing sword? Young Master Qin Yu, what if Yu Haoran still shamelessly arranges for his own people to participate in the auction? The Sky Sword sect leader reminded kindly when he thought of how Yu Haoran had countered Qin Yu's threat. If Yu Haoran dares to use such shameless methods, then not only will he fail to humiliate the Sword Dao by auctioning off the Cloud Piercer sword at such a low price, he will also be slapping himself in the face. Qin Yu replied proudly in response to the sect master's kind reminder. Hearing Qin Yu's explanation, everyone nodded in agreement and couldn't help but feel excited. I wonder who is the only person who can make a bid. However, Forefather Zhou, who had been clear-headed and seemed to be targeting the Yushu temple, asked with a cold smile. Don't tell me it's you, Qin Yu. Forefather Zhou's cold question caused everyone's excitement to plummet. At the same time, they were even more certain that Qin Yu's suggestion was to obtain the low-grade Emperor-grade cloud-piercing sword for himself at the lowest price. Qin Yu's face darkened when Forefather Zhou exposed his sinister intentions. However, he had already considered this point, so he took a deep breath and countered with a smile. How could Qin Yu have such intentions? Everyone, the Sky Sword sect has always been a sacred place in the hearts of sword cultivators. Why don't we let the Sky Sword sect leader be the one to bid? The Sky Sword sect master's face flushed red with excitement when he heard Qin Yu's suggestion. He looked at the number 1 private room with a look of gratitude. What an arrogant idiot! Yu Haoran mocked Qin Yu disdainfully and loudly said to the people in the venue after speaking to him in a loud voice. Everyone, according to the rules of the auction, if no one bids for an item for a long time, then as the owner of the item, you have the right to decide whether to take it back. Perhaps you can directly make a deal with a friend here. It's about time. I will now announce the countdown for the low-grade, Emperor-grade, cloud-piercing sword. Using the restriction that he couldn't act shamelessly to suppress the final price of the cloud-piercing sword seemed very clever, but it was actually a stupid idea full of flaws. First of all, the Yushu temple wasn't strong enough to intimidate everyone present into obeying Qin Yu's orders. Secondly, no matter who the sole bidder was, no one else would be convinced. Last but not least, he had underestimated the allure of the Cloud Piercer, a sword with a slumbering artifact spirit, to the crowd. It was because of the above three reasons that Yu Haoran had remained silent in the face of Qin Yu's scheme to deceive him. Chapter 13:18. In the auction hall. Damn it! Qin Yu cursed with an ashen face when she heard the crowd's laughter and bidding voices. He didn't expect that Yu Haoran would be able to resolve his meticulously planned scheme so easily. On the other hand, the terrestrial venerable who was sitting on the armchair looked at Qin Yu with disappointment. Qin Yu, let Elder Hong be in charge of the plan to kill Yu Haoran. After the auction, go back to the Yushu Temple and prepare for the Hidden Dragon ranking competition in the Central Region and 5 regions. Qin Yu's face turned pale when he heard the earthly venerable's arrangement. Qin Yu knew that he had been completely abandoned by his master. He had lost the chance to compete for the position of earthly venerable. He could only be an ordinary elder in the future. At the same time, he knew his master's character better. He knew that, even if he begged, he would not change his master's mind. Originally, she had a bright future ahead of her, but because Yu Haoran had ruined her meticulously prepared plans 3 times in a row, she had lost the hope of fighting for her entire life. This caused Qin Yu to look at Yu Haoran, who was on the high platform, as a crazed look appeared in her eyes. The earthly venerable had no intention of reminding or comforting him. The Yushu Temple was a sect that did not care about friendship. They only cared about whether you were useful or not. The more valuable you were, the more you would be treated. The same applied to the other way around. Even if Qin Yu rushed to the high platform to fight Yu Haoran, the earthly venerable would not stop him or help him. He would only watch from the sidelines. If Qin Yu could kill Yu Haoran successfully, he would reconsider his idea of training Qin Yu. If Qin Feng was killed by Yu Haoran, he would not offend Yu Haoran on the spot and affect the auction plan. Qin Yu knew that Yu Haoran had a protector that even the earthly venerable was afraid of. He did not rush to the high platform. A complete low-grade Emperor Sword was far more valuable than all the other treasures combined. Not only did the price quickly exceed 200 low-grade, 9th-level spirit veins, the price didn't seem to be slowing down at all. When the price of the cloud-piercing sword exceeded 100 low-grade, 9th-grade spirit veins, Bian Xingrui had no choice but to give up. As he helplessly looked at the cloud-piercing sword, a trace of determination gradually appeared in his eyes. If the Heavenly Earth commerce could become the #1 commerce in the Tianxian land, then, if the Chamber of Commerce was able to monopolize all the businesses on the continent, then today's predicament of facing a tempting treasure would not occur again. If he wanted to achieve his goal, the first step was to truly control the power of the Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, the seeds of power struggle began to sprout in Bian Xingrui's heart. When the price of the sword exceeded 300 9th-level spirit veins, the frenzied bidding began to slow down. In the end, the owner of the 5th private room won the rights to the sword with a sky-high price of 348 9th-level spirit veins. Good sword. After completing the transaction, the owner of the 5th private room couldn't help but praise in a loud voice. The owner of the 5th private room couldn't help but praise. This also made those who had lost the sword extremely unwilling to accept it. However, when Yu Haoran took out the sword that was also a low-grade Emperor sword, their unwillingness was immediately replaced by eagerness. Their hearts were immediately filled with fighting spirit. A complete low-grade Emperor-level saber weapon with a sleeping weapon spirit. It contains 108 offensive formations and 81 defensive formations. Yu Haoran undid a small part of the seal on the churning cloud saber, allowing everyone to feel the Emperor Realm weapon's power. He then announced the price of the churning cloud saber. The starting price for the complete cloud flip saber is 109th level low-grade spirit veins. Each bid must not be lower than 5 ninth-level low-grade spirit veins, or 10,000 fourth-level first-grade spirit stones. The starting price of the sword was 1 ninth-level first-grade spirit stone, while the starting price of the sword was 100 ninth-level low-grade spirit veins. Faced with such a disparity in price, the head of the Sky Sword sect thought he would be furious. He might even go crazy and fight Yu Haoran to the death. However, as soon as Yu Haoran announced the bidding price, the sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect discovered that his heart was as calm as still water. Not only was he not enraged by the humiliation of the way of the sword once again, he even felt that the way of the sword deserved to be humiliated. In truth, the sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect hadn't realized that Yu Haoran's 2 consecutive humiliations towards the Tao of the sword had already softened his belief in the Tao of the sword that he had always pursued. His thoughts of nurturing the earth sword and the human sword had also loosened a little. At the same time, none of the sword cultivators present realized that as the head of the Sky Sword sect, who symbolized the holy land of the Sword Tao, softened his belief in the Sword Tao, the fate of the Sword Tao in the world was flowing away faster. 209th level low-grade spirit veins. Although there were far fewer sword cultivators in the Tianxian continent who cultivated the Sword Tao, weapons of the Emperor level could basically break free from the restrictions of the martial Tao. Therefore, when Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction, Forefather Zhou immediately doubled the price to show his determination to obtain the cloud-piercing sword. 209th level low-grade spirit veins. 251 9th level low-grade spirit veins. The price of the cloud-piercing sword did not lose out to the price of the cloud-piercing sword. Very quickly, it broke through the 300 mark and continued to reach a higher price. In the end, it was bought by the Forefather Zhou with a price that exceeded the cloud-piercing sword by 1 9th level low-grade spirit vein. With the end of the auction for the 8th item, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. The experts in the 36 private rooms all stood up and stared at Yu Haoran, who was standing on a high platform. Faced with the gazes of the crowd, Yu Haoran took a deep breath. Not only did he not immediately take out the 9th item, he slowly closed his eyes and used his divine sense to communicate with Bian Xingrui. Great Elder, I'm very sorry. I'm afraid I have to break the rules of the auction that you set. The final number of items to be auctioned will reach 10. Originally, according to his initial plan, he did not intend to auction the 3rd level first-grade Supreme Hua Pill. Therefore, he let Thaling use Victor's ability to accelerate time to prepare 2 drops of primordial ginseng liquid in advance. He planned to use the liquid to replace the 3rd level first-grade Supreme Hua Pill as the 4th item to be auctioned. However, when he arrived at Twinble Mountain, he realized that most of the experts from the sects and clans who came to participate in the auction were aiming for the 3rd level first-grade Supreme Hua Pill. Chapter 1319. In the auction hall, Bian Xingrui comforted Yu Haoran with a smile on his face when he heard his apology. Prince Consort, the rule of auctioning the 9 treasures is something that I, Bian Xingrui, adhere to personally. You don't have to follow this rule at all. You can auction as many treasures as you want. Thank you for your understanding, Great Elder. After thanking him, Yu Haoran slowly opened his eyes. He then took out an ancient pill bottle from his storage ring. He opened the pill bottle and poured out a pill that gave off an aura of vicissitudes. This is a rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill that can extend one's lifespan by 3,000 years. The quasi-martial honorables in the hall who were proficient in alchemy immediately identified the origin of the pill in Yu Haoran's hand after sensing the aura of vicissitudes from a pill. Although they already knew that one of the 9 treasures that Yu Haoran was auctioning was a top pill that could extend one's lifespan, the people who participated in the auction were still suspicious. After all, although there was no lack of pills and treasures that could extend one's lifespan in the Tianxian continent, a rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill that could directly extend one's lifespan by 3,000 years had not appeared for millions of years. Therefore, after seeing Yu Haoran take out the life essence pill and hearing the cries of the independent alchemists, The atmosphere became even more silent, and there was even a trace of oppression in the silence. Senior, you are right. The pill in my hand is indeed a rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill that can directly extend one's lifespan by 3,000 years. Yu Howard nodded at the rogue cultivator who had pointed out the origin of the pill and put it back into the pill bottle. He smiled and announced the starting price for the rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill. The starting price for the rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill is 300 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians. The starting price for each auction cannot be less than 10 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians. At the same time, no spiritual stones of any grade will be accepted. The auction for the rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill will now begin. What was different from the previous auctions was that after Yu Howard announced the auction, there was no sound of bidding. Instead, it became even quieter. They could even clearly hear some people's heartbeats. Yu Howard was not in a hurry. He stood on the high platform and waited quietly for the first person to break the silence. 400 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians. Along with the sound of bidding from the 5th private room, the silence was broken in an instant. The price of the second stage, first grade life essence elixir shot up like a rocket, surpassing the limit of ordinary sex and families in the hall. Soon, it broke through the barrier of 600 spiritual veins. However, even after breaking through the 600 spirit veins mark, the rising price only slowed down a little. It still continued to set auction records with the price of 10 to 20 spirit veins. 800 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians. When the price reached 750 spiritual meridians, the earthly venerable in room number 1, he suddenly increased the price by 50 spiritual meridians. After shocking everyone present, he pushed open the door of the room and appeared in the corridor on the 2nd floor. The rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill is something that the Yushu Temple must obtain. I now swear on behalf of the Celestial Venerable and the Human Venerable that if any top sects or families with thousands of years of history continue to compete with me for the longevity pill, it will be an official declaration of war against the Yushu Temple. After this, I will personally lead countless experts of the Yushu Temple to kill every person, beast, flower, and grass in their faction. After hearing the earthly venerable master's murderous vow, the experts in the private rooms swallowed back the price they were about to offer. Then they looked at the earthly venerable standing in the corridor with gloomy faces. They had never thought that the earthly venerable would fight to the death to bid for the rank 2, rank 1 longevity pill. Even Zhou family's patriarch, who was not afraid of the Yushu Temple, had to remain silent. After all, the sleeping ancestors of the Zhou family had not truly awakened. It was not suitable for them to have a large-scale conflict with the Yushu Temple for the time being. Yu Howard's face also darkened as he looked at the arrogant, earthly venerable standing in the corridor. Although he had already guessed that the earthly venerable would resort to all sorts of underhanded means to obtain the life essence pill, he had not expected the earthly venerable to use the method of declaring war to force everyone present to give up the bidding for the life essence pill. His original estimate of the longevity pill's price exceeding 1,000 spiritual meridians had to be reduced to 800 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians. Although he was angry, Yu Howard had no way to deal with the earthly venerable's declaration of war and swearing an oath. Now, he could only hope that the old monsters hiding in the void above the auction would not be able to resist the fatal attraction of the longevity pill and would choose to participate in the auction in the end. Unfortunately, after waiting for nearly 3 minutes, the old monsters hiding in the void did not make a move. Yu Howard had no choice but to start the countdown for the longevity pills auction. 800 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians, going once. After 30 seconds, the scene was still silent. Yu Howard continued to count down. 800 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians, going twice. After waiting for nearly a minute, no one broke the deadlock created by the earthly venerable at the crucial moment. Yu Howard could only shake his head in disappointment and announce the final owner of the longevity pill. 800 lower rank, 9 spiritual meridians, going thrice. I now announce that the Level 2, Grade 1 longevity pill will be sold to the Yushu Temple's earthly venerable at the price of 800 lower rank, 9 spiritual meridians. Seeing that Yu Haoran did not use any tricks to disrupt the announcement of the final owner of the longevity pill, the earthly venerable, who was ready to shed all pretense of cordiality, and the two martial venerables in the private room were completely stunned. They did not expect that Yu Haoran, who was never willing to suffer losses, would finally succumb to the threat of the earthly venerable's declaration of war and swearing an oath. Earthly venerable, spiritual meridians. Yu Haoran reminded the earthly venerable with a cold expression as he used the method of wrapping spiritual meridians to wrap the bottle with spiritual meridians and send it to him. The earthly venerable immediately sorted out the 800 lower rank 9 spiritual meridians and sent them to Yu Haoran using the same method. Then, both of them put away their storage devices and bottles at the same time. Seeing that Yu Haoran and the earthly venerable had successfully completed the transaction, the people in the hall and the experts in the private room could not help but sigh. Then, they stood up and planned to leave the auction venue. Cough. However, at this moment, they suddenly heard Yu Haoran's soft cough, which was condensed using spiritual meridians. Chapter 1320. In the auction hall, ladies and gentlemen, according to the rules of the top auction of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, there are only 9 treasures to be auctioned this time. Seeing that everyone's attention had returned to him, Yu Haoran, who had readjusted his emotions, explained with a smile. However, I accidentally obtained a treasure some time ago. It's a treasure that can greatly increase a martial artist's cultivation and strength. However, I don't want to rely on external forces to increase my cultivation and strength, and I can't resist the strong temptation of this treasure for a long time. Therefore, after much consideration, I've finally decided to take out this treasure for auction. This way, I can obtain a large amount of spiritual meridians that can help my cultivation and eliminate the impact of this treasure on my soul. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, some of the experts at the scene suddenly remembered a rumor that had suddenly spread in the Right Ox City before the auction officially began. According to the rumor, Yu Haoran would auction a kind of elixir at this auction. It was a kind of elixir that could help martial artists at the peak of Emperor Wu realm and Quasi-Emperor realm to break through to the Emperor Wu realm. Of course, they scoffed at the authenticity of this rumor, because they simply didn't believe that there was anyone in this world who could resist and give up on the elixir that could help them break through to the Emperor Wu realm. However, from Yu Haoran's explanation, they vaguely felt that the rumors seemed to be true. The treasure that this ambitious young man in front of them was taking out to auction was very likely the legendary elixir. At this moment, the calm void above the auction hall suddenly began to churn. Accompanied by the churning of the dark clouds and the void, a gloomy-looking skinny old man walked out from the dark clouds. Then, he raised his head and looked at the dark clouds that gradually calmed down. The skinny old man slowly closed his eyes. 3 seconds later, the skinny old man suddenly opened his eyes and shot out 2 rays of white light. The 2 rays of white light were like void pythons that shot to different positions in the void. "Old Xiao, what are you doing?" As the white light shot out from his left, I accurately hit the dark clouds in the void on the left. An angry voice immediately rang out. A white-haired, white-robed, benevolent-looking old man walked out of the dark clouds in the sky. At the same time, a black-haired, black-clothed, gloomy old man walked out of the dark clouds that had been hit by the white light. "Brother Tsong, Brother Liu, the last item that the young man is going to auction is very likely to be a second-stage, first-grade Emperor Yuan pill that can aid in Emperor Wu's breakthrough." Ignoring the white-haired old man's accusation, the skinny old man said solemnly, "Therefore, in order to ensure that we can obtain the supreme essence pill in the end, the 3 of us must work together to fight against those opponents whose strength and wealth far surpass ours. Brother Xiao, forming an alliance is not a problem. The problem is who will get the Emperor Yuan pill after we successfully obtain it. The white-haired, white-robed elder asked with a benevolent smile on his face as he strode through the air toward the skinny, small elder. Brother Tsang, among the three of us, Brother Liu is the strongest and most talented. He's also the one with the most hope of breaking through to Emperor Wu's almighty realm with the help of the Emperor Yuan pill. The skinny old man answered the question of who would get the supreme essence pill in the end without any selfish motives. As long as Brother Liu can successfully break through to Emperor Wu's almighty realm with the help of the supreme essence pill, he will have the strength to bring us into the depths of the death swamp and fight for the second stage, first-grade Emperor Yuan flower with the natives of the Forbidden Land. Taking a deep breath, the skinny old man continued with an agitated expression. Brother Tsang, as long as we can obtain a petal of the second stage, first-grade Emperor Yuan flower, you and I can also break through to Emperor Wu's almighty realm and become invincible almighties. The skinny old man's consideration of the big picture and his arrangements for their future cultivation moved the white-haired, white-robed old man, who immediately nodded in agreement to his suggestion. As for the black-haired, black-robed old man, his eyes revealed a hint of emotion as he nodded at the skinny old man. After that, the three of them rushed down to the auction venue. Just as the skinny old man and the other two left the void, a white-haired old man in a star robe appeared in the void. Looking at the skinny old man and the other two rushing toward the auction venue, the star-robed old man's eyes flashed with a hint of disdain. His entire body transformed into a star core the size of a fist and smashed into the auction venue. However, when it was less than 3 meters away from the auction venue, the star core transformed back into the star-robed old man and quickly rushed into the auction venue. Just as the old man in starry robes charged into the auction venue, 1 or 2 other old men would appear from time to time in the air. They would either charge into the auction venue without saying a word, or they would make their way into the auction venue after muttering a few mocking words to themselves. Prince Consort, may I know what the treasure you are talking about is? Relying on the friendly relationship between the clan leader and Zhou Fengshu with Yu Haoran, Zhou clan's patriarch took the initiative to ask. Yu Haoran raised his head and glanced at the top of the auction hall. He withdrew his gaze and took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. After opening it, he poured out the pills inside the pill bottle and introduced them to everyone present. That is the Rank 2, Rank 1 Emperor Yuan pill that can help Emperor Wu break through to the Almighty Realm. Looking at the pill in Yu Haoran's hand that emitted traces of Emperor's aura and hearing his detailed introduction, everyone present couldn't help but gasp and look at Yu Haoran in a daze. Although they had already guessed that the 10th auction item was likely to be the pill with heaven-defying effects, when Yu Haoran really took it out, everyone present found it hard to accept the reality in a short time. Just when everyone present was in a daze, the skinny old man and the other 2 people who had rushed into the auction venue in an instant also happened to see the pill in Yu Haoran's hand. The skinny old man, who was slightly proficient in the art of alchemy, immediately confirmed with excitement. That's right, it really is the Rank 2, Rank 1 Emperor Yuan pill. Seeing the 3 old men suddenly rush into the auction venue, Yu Haoran smiled slightly and put the pill back into the pill bottle. Then, he shook his head at Bian Xingrui, who was about to scold them, indicating that he didn't need to pay too much attention to them. At the same time, Thaling used the power of his Victor body to instantly see through the cultivation of the 3 people. Yu Haoran, the skinny old man, and the white-haired old man had just broken through to the 3rd tribulation quasi-Emperor Wu realm. The black-clothed old man with a cold temperament is a 3rd tribulation quasi-emperor. After hearing Thaling's introduction, Yu Haoran silently nodded. However, when he saw the white-haired old man with a kind smile on his face and a trace of frightening coldness in his eyes, he immediately warned Thaling. Thaling, immediately take the Emperor Yuan pill from the pill bottle. Got it. Chapter 1321. In the auction hall. Young man, name your price. The skinny old man and his 2 companions rushed into the auction hall. They did not sit on the seats in the hall. nor did they rush into the private rooms on the second floor. Instead, they floated in front of Yu Haoran. The black-haired old man in black ordered in a frosty voice when he saw Yu Haoran put the level 2, grade 1 Emperor Yuan pill back into the pill bottle. Seniors, in the face of the black-haired, black-clothed old man's frosty command, Yu Haoran did not get angry at all. The level 2, grade 1 Emperor Yuan pill is the finale item of this auction. All the distinguished guests who enter the auction have a chance to obtain the Emperor Yuan pill, provided that you beat the other competitors in terms of price. Therefore, the three of you can choose to sit in the hall or choose a private room and compete for the Emperor Yuan pill after the official auction. The black-haired old man in black was annoyed by Yu Haoran's explanation and reminder. He wanted to snatch the pill away by force, but the skinny old man beside him pulled him back and reminded him through divine telekinesis. Elder Xing Hai is here. After hearing the skinny old man's reminder, the black-haired old man immediately suppressed the displeasure in his heart and turned his head to look at the 36 private rooms on the second floor. The black-haired old man in black immediately looked at the earthly venerable in room number 1 and saw him take out a silver-white token. His expression changed when he saw a white-haired old man and a fair child in room number 2. He immediately used his divine telekinesis to look at room number 3. Although the Zhou clan, which had been passed down since the Middle Ages, was very powerful, the old monsters who had been living in seclusion for thousands or even tens of thousands of years were invincible as long as Emperor Wu could not awaken for the time being. Therefore, the black-haired old man in black chose room number 3, but the skinny old man shook his head and rejected him. He chose room number 11 directly. Apart from Elder Xing Hai, there will be a few more opponents that we can't deal with for the time being. Therefore, we can only choose to be patient for the time being. The white-haired old man in white robes and the black-haired old man in black nodded after hearing the skinny old man's explanation. They then followed him to room number 3. Right at this moment, the old man in a star robe charged into the auction hall as well. Turning his head to look at Elder Xing Hai, the three of them did not greet him, nor did they show any hostility. They only retracted their gazes and kicked open the door of the private room. Scram! The black-haired and black-clothed old man sternly reprimanded the 2 elders and 3 disciples of the Miao family. As the descendants of the Miao family, the 3 of them had been regarded highly since they were young. When had they ever been reprimanded like this? One of them, a monstrous genius whose body and soul power had broken through to the martial saint realm, angrily stood up and threatened. Do you know who we are? Either get lost or die. The black-haired and black-clothed old man ignored the threat of the Miao family disciples and stepped into the private room. He looked coldly at the 2 martial revered elders and threatened them with a frosty voice. Senior, please don't be angry. We'll leave now. Although the black-haired and black-clothed old man did not emit any aura, the 2 martial honorable elders could feel a fatal threat. They quickly stood up and cupped their hands in greeting. After that, the 2 martial honorable elders immediately brought the 3 unconvinced elite disciples out of private room number 11. Xing Hai Elder, who was floating in the air of the venue, knew what was going on after seeing the choices of the skinny old man and the other 2. He turned his head and looked at the entrance of the venue. Xing Hai Elder rushed to the front of room 9. Either get lost or die. Elder Xing Hai gave the same choice as the black-haired and black-clothed old man when he faced the martial honorable expert in private room number 11. The owner of private room number 9, who had also sensed Elder Xing Hai's terrifying strength, immediately brought the family's elite disciples to give up the ownership of the private room. In the following period of time, another 4 waves of 7 terrifying experts appeared in the auction hall. Like the skinny old man and Elder Xing Hai, they chose private rooms number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 respectively. After the green-robed old man who chose private room number 5 entered the private room, a full 3 minutes had passed, but not a single terrifying expert appeared. Yu Haoran could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Then, just as he was about to announce the starting price of the Emperor Essence Pill, he suddenly heard a strange laughter. Gaga. Accompanied by the strange laughter, Yu Haoran suddenly felt his palm lighten. When he came back to his senses, he realized that the pill bottle in his hand had disappeared. Old man in a flowery robe, leave the Emperor Essence pill behind. Yu Haoran only realized after the pill bottle had been snatched away because his cultivation was too low, his strength was too weak, and Thaling did not have time to remind him. However, to the 11 terrifying experts in the private room, they immediately rushed out of the private room to chase after the pill bottle had been snatched away. Seniors, there's no need to chase. Just as the skinny old man and the other 11 terrifying experts chased to the exit of the auction hall, Yu Haoran, who had come back to his senses, immediately reminded them loudly. Stopping their pursuit, the skinny old man and the others turned to look at Yu Haoran. They did not understand why he stopped them from chasing after the flower-robed old man who had snatched away the Emperor Essence pill. Facing the gaze of the skinny old man and the others, Yu Haoran placed his hands behind his back and exuded a strong sense of confidence. Since the ancient era of alchemy was founded, no one has been able to snatch away the pill that belonged to a top alchemist, whether it was personally refined or obtained by accident. At this point, Yu Haoran withdrew his left hand from behind his back. Suddenly, a pill emitting traces of Emperor's might appeared in his left palm. That's right. It's the second stage, first-grade Emperor Essence pill in the pill bottle just now. The familiar smell and Emperor's might made the skinny old man heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, he nodded, confirming that this pill was indeed the one that had been snatched away by the flower-robed old man. To be able to retrieve the stolen Emperor Essence pill from the hands of the Third Tribulation Quasi-Emperor Emperor Wu, the 11 Third Tribulation Quasi-Emperor Emperor Wu realm experts looked at Yu Haoran with a hint of fear in their eyes. After retrieving the Emperor Essence pill, Yu Haoran suggested with a smile, "Seniors, please return to your private rooms for the time being. I will now announce the starting bid for the second stage, first-grade Emperor Essence pill." Nodding, the skinny old man and the other 11 terrifying experts returned to their private rooms. However, just as they were about to step into their private rooms, they heard the flower-robed old man's exasperated voice. "Damn brat, how dare you trick me? See if I don't swallow you alive." Accompanied by the exasperated threat, a white-haired old man in a colorful robe instantly appeared in the auction hall. He was half handsome and half ugly. Chapter 1322. In the auction house. Facing Yu Haoran's tough counterattack, the old man in the flowery robe could not help but laugh strangely. A sinister smile appeared on his ugly and strange face as he provoked Yu Haoran. "Brat, come, let this old man see how easily you can take my life." In the face of the old man's contemptuous provocation, Yu Haoran chuckled and said to everyone present, "Seniors, my alchemy skills have already reached the peak of the alchemy Grandmaster realm. I only need to refine a special elixir to successfully advance to the alchemy Emperor realm. This special elixir is called the Embryonic Emperor Elixir. It is both a luck elixir and a probability elixir." After that, Yu Haoran introduced the effects of the Embryonic Emperor Elixir in detail, as well as his strong confidence in refining the Embryonic Emperor Elixir. He was about to become an alchemy emperor. After hearing Yu Haoran's strong confidence in advancing his alchemy skills, both the old man in the flowery robe floating in the air and the experts in the private room were shocked. However, what made them even more surprised was the Embryonic Emperor Elixir that Yu Haoran had just mentioned, because in their knowledge of alchemy, they had never heard of such a strange elixir. Ignoring the shock of everyone present, Yu Haoran continued to speak with his hands cupped. "Seniors, if you believe that you have strong luck, or if you are willing to bet on your luck, then you can choose to fight one-on-one or besiege the old man in the flowery robe. As long as you can successfully kill the old man in the flowery robe, I will give each of you an Embryonic Emperor Elixir." In the face of Yu Haoran's offer, although the skinny old man and the other experts were tempted, they did not seem to be confident in their luck. Otherwise, Why had they not broken through to the Emperor Wu realm after thousands of years of cultivation? Therefore, no one present responded to the request just now. Ha! The scene of no response made the old man in the flowery robe even more proud of himself. I believe all of you have heard of Yu Haoran's alchemy skills. Yu Haoran was not disappointed at all as he continued to speak. Junior will continue to promise that as long as Senior kills the flower-robed old man, Junior will help him refine a pill for free in addition to giving him an embryonic emperor pill. Little friend, are you serious? Hearing Yu Haoran's second promise, the old man from room 9 immediately asked, Senior, this Junior never speaks nonsense. Yu Haoran vowed solemnly. Little friend, if your alchemy cultivation base breaks through to the alchemy emperor, are you sure you can refine the first grade star source congealing spirit pill of the second grade? After getting Yu Haoran's guarantee, Star C old man continued to ask. Without immediately replying to Elder Xinghai's question, Yu Haoran suddenly fell into deep thought. Alas! Seeing Yu Haoran in deep thought, Star C old man thought that he couldn't refine the star source congealing spirit pill either, and he couldn't help sighing. Star source congealing spirit pill, with the star core of the star source in the endless void as the main medicine. Then it is integrated with 36 kinds of third grade 9 spiritual medicine that can absorb the power of the stars. It is a kind of medicinal pill that can forcibly absorb the power of the laws of stars into the body. Hearing the disappointed sigh from the 9th private room, Yu Haoran took a deep breath, first introduced the role of the star source congealing spirit pill in detail. Then he cupped his fist and said to the 9th private room, Senior, it's not that Junior can't refine the first grade star source congealing spirit pill of the second grade. I'm just considering what kind of state to refine it in. Little friend, what do you mean? Yu Haoran's familiarity with the star source congealing pill made Star C old man excited again, but Yu Haoran's explanation just now made him puzzled. Senior, in fact, with Junior's current alchemy cultivation base, I can refine the first grade star source congealing spirit pill of the second grade, but the success rate is only 10%. Putting down his cupped hands, Yu Haoran explained proudly. If Junior's alchemy cultivation base can be promoted to the alchemy emperor, then the success rate of refining the star source congealing spirit pill will be as high as 50%. Although the grade of the star source congealing spirit pill was as high as the first grade of the second grade, with his own familiarity with the power of stars, the explanation just now was not false. Moreover, with the help of the first clone whose alchemy cultivation base had also reached the peak of the Grandmaster, the success rate of refining the star source congealing spirit pill with his current alchemy ability was actually close to 20%. He deliberately lowered it by 10% just because he didn't want to refine it now. Little friend, is this true? Star C old man asked with great excitement. If Senior doesn't believe it, Junior swears by the rules of heaven. Yu Haoran raised his left hand and gestured. Little friend, I believe you. As Star C old man chose to believe, a fist-sized star core appeared in front of Yu Haoran, and Star C old man, who instantly returned to his original body, said to the old man in a flowery robe, Flowery robe, either choose a private room yourself and compete for the Emperor Yuan pill with your own financial resources, or let's see who's the real deal. Facing Star C old man's intervention, the old man in a flowery robe asked with a sinister smile, Xinghai, can you do it? Flowery robe, although I'm not your opponent, I can definitely severely injure you at the cost of overdrawing hundreds of years of my lifespan. Facing the contempt of the old man in a flowery robe, Star C old man said indifferently, I don't know if you can escape the pursuit of soul-chasing and life-severing after being severely injured. The threat of Star C old man made the old man in a flowery robe's face change. But Yu Haoran's next words directly made the old man in a flowery robe turn around and go straight to the 3rd private room. Senior Star C, don't worry. Since Junior is willing to take out a Stage 2, Stage 1 life essence pill for auction, then I have enough confidence to refine an identical Stage 2, Stage 1 life essence pill after advancing to the Alchemy Emperor realm. It's enough to make up for the hundreds of years of your lifespan that you've overdrawn. Thank you for your help, Senior Star C. Howard hurriedly thanked Star C Old Man when he saw the old man in a flowery robe go straight to the third private room. Little friend, what's the agreement between you and me? Star C Old Man asked nervously after waving his hand to indicate that Howard did not have to be polite. After the Southern Region Hidden Dragon Rankings competition is over, Junior will directly open the furnace to refine the Stage 3, Stage 1 Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill, the Stage 2, Stage 1 Emperor Yuan Pill, and the Star Source Congealing Spirit Pill in the Hidden Dragon Fortress. Howard replied with a smile. Little friend, Shanghai will go to the Hidden Dragon Fortress to watch the Hidden Dragon Rankings competition this time. Star C Old Man, who let out a long sigh of relief, said with a smile. Then he went straight to the 9th private room. Chapter 1323. Inside the auction hall. Cough. When Howard saw the old man in flowery robes close the door to the private room, he cleared his throat. Just as he was about to announce the starting price of the first-grade second-stage Emperor Essence Pill, an extremely domineering aura penetrated the roof of the auction house and entered the hall. Oomph. Fowling snorted in disdain at the domineering aura descending from the sky. He used his powerful spiritual force to help Howard set up a defensive barrier to prevent him from being forced to kneel by the domineering aura. Just as Fowling finished setting up the defensive barrier with his spiritual force, Elder Shanghai and the black-clothed man, transformed from the black nirvana flame, appeared on the stage at the same time. The black-clothed man, transformed from the black nirvana flame, instantly returned to the corner of the hall after seeing that Howard had the means to resist the domineering aura. Elder Shanghai glanced at Howard in surprise before returning to the 9th room. After glancing at the black nirvana flame with confusion and gratitude, Howard quickly glanced at the situation in the hall. He realized that other than the martial supremacies and quasi-Emperor Wu experts, as well as the people they were protecting, everyone else was kneeling on the ground. Then he looked up at the hole in the roof that had been pierced through. A middle-aged man in a purple dragon robe with a dignified appearance and emitted a strong emperor aura slowly descended. Shangjia, you're not dead yet. Looking at the middle-aged man in the dragon robe slowly descending into the hall, Elder Zhou exclaimed with a slightly panicked expression. Oomph. Even that junior Zhou didn't die. How can this emperor die? Shangjia coldly glanced at Elder Zhou and sneered. Then he slowly floated in front of Howard. When he opened his mouth to say something, he was shocked by the spiritual force barrier on Howard's body. Looking at Howard's calm expression and disdainful gaze, a hint of fear flashed in Shangjia's eyes. He turned around and went straight to room 1 on the 2nd floor. For the sake of the Heavenly Sovereign, I won't say any threatening words. Now, give up your private room, Shangjia said indifferently as he stood at the door of private room number 1. Earth Venerable, let's give room number 1 to the Shang Emperor. A martial venerable elder behind him hurriedly shook his head when he saw that the Earth Venerable was about to refuse. Elder Hong, you should know that in this world, apart from Senior Brother, there is no one else who can make me voluntarily give up my room. The terrestrial venerable turned his head to look at the grand elder who was trying to persuade him and reminded him with a gloomy expression. Earthly Venerable, not only has Emperor Shan's cultivation reached the peak of the 9th grade martial venerable, but according to the heavenly venerable speculation, his current Yuan Qi and divine soul have probably surpassed Emperor Wu's realm. Elder Hong said calmly in the face of the earthly venerable's unwillingness to submit. So, it's up to you whether you want to leave voluntarily or be chased out by the Shang Emperor. Elder Hong then nodded to the other Grand Elder and left the private room without paying any attention to the earthly venerable. He then cupped his hands and bowed to Shangjia. Greetings to the Shang Emperor. When you go back, send my regards to the heavenly venerable. Tell him that I'll find him another day for tea and a discussion. Shang Jin nodded and instructed with a gentle expression. I'll remember, Elder Hong hurriedly replied. Hearing the friendly conversation outside the private room, the earthly venerable's face turned ashen, hesitant, ferocious, and helpless. In the end, he shook his head and sighed helplessly, then got up and left the private room. Qin Yu hurriedly followed him out. After leaving the private room, the earthly venerable ignored Shang Jie and looked directly at private room number 2. An intense cold light appeared in his eyes. In response, Shang Jie's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery, and he stepped into private room number 1. Either get lost or die. The earthly venerable, who was suppressing his anger and humiliation, kicked open the door of private room number 2 and yelled at the old and the young inside. SSS. After hearing the earthly venerables yell at the old and the young in private room number 2, gasps could be heard from private rooms number 3 to 11. Then, Shang Jie's sarcastic voice came from private room number 1. Idiot who doesn't recognize Mount Tai. Grandpa Yin, I'm so scared. Faced with the earthly venerable's murderous threat, the fair-skinned child, who was less than a meter tall, immediately showed a fearful expression and complained to the old man. However, from the faint smile in his eyes, everyone present could see that his fearful expression was completely faked. However, the old man, who was originally sitting on the chair, suddenly knelt down on both knees and begged for forgiveness with a frightened expression. Emperor Ming, please calm down. It's all my fault for not taking care of you properly and allowing some lowly animals to disturb you. I deserve to die. Grandpa Yin, it seems like Blackie doesn't have much time left. I don't know how long it can stay with me. Ignoring the old man, who knelt down in fear, the fair-skinned child waved his hand and a black puppy appeared in his arms. Then, as he stroked the black puppy's head, the fair-skinned child sighed with a hint of sadness. A soul-devouring dog with the bloodline of the divine hound of hell. After seeing the black puppy in the fair-skinned child's arms, Thowling shouted with a hint of fear. At the same time, he finally understood why the fair-skinned child, whose cultivation and background he could not see through, gave him a deadly sense of danger. Thowling, didn't the infernal purgatory disappear completely after the destruction of the ancient times? After hearing Thowling shout, Yu Haoran immediately recalled that in his previous life, he had wandered into a cave left behind by the ancient times. There was a simple record of the infernal purgatory in a few words, and he immediately asked in confusion. The tower spirit took a deep breath and tried its best to conceal its aura to avoid being discovered by the little black dog in the arms of the fair and tender child, so it explained with a serious expression. Yu Haoran, in the ancient times, other than the ancient continent where thousands of creatures lived, there were many other continents connected to the ancient continent. For example, the divine kingdom of the God clan, the devil paradise of the demon clan, the dark mist of the night soul clan, and so on. The infernal purgatory was the birthplace of the nether clan, which was second only to the divine beasts and the God clan. It was also one of the few continents that could compare to the divine kingdom and the devil paradise. Before the destruction of the ancient times, the leader of the nether clan, whose strength was not inferior to that of the divine beasts, used his power to forcefully sever the connection between the infernal purgatory and the ancient continent. Then, he floated into the endless void of stars. Therefore, the experts who survived the destruction of the ancient times knew that the infernal purgatory had not been destroyed and the nether clan had not been destroyed. It was just that no one knew when they would return to this world. Through the space in the sea of consciousness, Thowling looked at the old and the young in the private room and said with a bitter smile, "Now, it seems that the nether clan is the same as the God clan. I'm afraid that in the near future, they will return to the Tianxian continent and fight for the position of the overlord of the Tianxian continent again." With a sigh, he looked at the endless void and sighed with a voice full of sorrow. Chapter 1324. In the auction hall. After hearing Thowling's worried sigh, Yu Haoran was surprised to find that he did not panic, nor did he have any blood-boiling impulse. His heart was as calm as water. After hearing the sad sigh of the fair and tender child, a look flashed across the eyes of the old man who was kneeling on the ground. He stood up and walked to the front of the earthly venerable, ordering coldly, "Contribute a second stage, first-grade life elixir, and I'll spare you from death." Ha! The earthly venerable, who was unwilling to give in, did not hear the gas from the private room just now. Therefore, he could not help but laugh at the old man's condescending order. "Since I became the master of the underground palace, no one in this world can judge my fate, not even my senior brother, the master of the heavenly palace." After laughing for nearly 20 seconds, the earthly venerable suddenly stopped laughing and questioned with a strong sense of arrogance. "Old man, what right do you have to decide the fate of the earthly venerable? Based on my cultivation and strength, I'm stronger than you." In the face of the earthly venerable's arrogant question, the old man replied indifferently and reached out his left hand to grab the earthly venerable's neck. Arrogant. The earthly venerable did not use any primary energy, soul power, or the power of law he controlled. Looking at the old man's slowly reaching left hand, he roared and planned to take out his natal celestial weapon to destroy the old man's hand. However, he was horrified to find that not only could he not take out his natal celestial weapon, he could not even mobilize his primary energy, divine soul, or the power of law. He could only watch the old man's hand reach out and grab his neck tightly. "Fouling, what kind of technique is this?" The old man's action of grabbing the earthly venerable's neck so easily shocked Yuhauran. He could not help but ask in horror. "Yuhauran, the reason why the Nether Clan is known as the nemesis of living creatures' divine souls is that their inherited bloodline contains a special power that can suppress, confuse, and drive the opponent's divine soul." In the face of Yuhauran's horrified questioning, Fouling explained with a solemn expression. Facing the attack of the First Tribulation prospective Emperor Wu, it wasn't that the earthly venerable didn't want to fight back, but he was confused by the underworld's special power. He mistakenly thought that he couldn't use his own strength, so he was easily captured in the end. Fouling's detailed explanation reduced the fear in Yuhauran's heart. However, he wanted to know how to resist the influence of the Netherworld's special power. After all, it was highly possible that the Nether Clan and the God Clan would return to the Tianxian land in the future. In order to fight for survival space, no one could predict whether or not a conflict would occur. A strong mental cultivation base, a firm will, and a flawless mind can counteract the influence of the Dark Clan's special power effectively. The solution given by Fouling was too general and couldn't truly restrain and resist the effect of the Netherworld power on the souls. Yuhauran couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. Then, as he continued to watch the conflict between the earthly venerable and the elder of the Netherworld, he also checked the memories of his previous life to find a solution to the Netherworld power's restraint on the souls. "I'll give you another choice now. Either you hand over the second stage, first-rank longevity elixir in an arm, or you die immediately," the elder said coldly as he held the earthly venerable's neck tightly. The earthly venerable roared in a hoarse voice as he glared at the elder of the Netherworld with a raging fire in his eyes. "Old man, if you're not afraid of being hunted down by the Yushu Temple's Emperor Wu, then just kill me. I'll grant you your wish." In the face of the earthly venerable's threat, the elder nodded without any change in expression. Then, his left hand began to tighten. As the elder tightened his grip, the earthly venerable was horrified to find that his dantian and sea of consciousness were beginning to show cracks that were about to collapse. At this moment, the arrogance of the master of the underground palace had completely disappeared. At this moment, the horror that emerged in his heart made him want to beg for mercy. However, the feeling of suffocation and the backlash from the collapse of his dantian and sea of consciousness made him unable to utter a single word. He could only submit and plead with his eyes. "Senior Emperor Hades, could you give me face and spare his life?" Just as the earthly venerable soul was about to be destroyed by the collapse of his sea of consciousness, Shang Jie's pleading voice suddenly came from private room number 1. The fair child who was stroking the black puppy turned his head to look at private room number 1. A trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes before he ordered the elder. Leave behind the storage device and 2 arms. This old servant obeys. After receiving the fair child's order, the elder complied and released his left hand from the earthly venerable's neck. With lightning speed, he tore off the earthly venerable's 2 arms and took the storage ring from the fingers of the left arm. Even though his arms had been torn off, the earthly venerable not only endured the excruciating pain without letting out a scream, but there was also no trace of hatred in his eyes. The earthly venerable master forced himself to use his divine sense to retrieve a top-notch healing pill and swallow it. He then bowed to the fair child and the old man before turning his head to look at the 2 martial venerable elders behind him. His eyes were filled with deep resentment. Although the 2 martial venerable Grand Supreme Elders were from the Heavenly Palace and were not under his control and deployment, they were still companions from the same sect. He was also the dignified master of the Underground Palace. They should have stepped in to save him. But look at the result. Qing Yu, accompany Master back to the Yushu Temple. The earthly venerable ordered Qing Yu as he retracted his hateful gaze. Yes, Master. After following the earthly venerable out of the auction hall, Qing Yu immediately took out an exquisite jade boat and tossed it into the air. The jade boat expanded in the wind and quickly turned into a giant spaceship. Qing Yu carefully helped the earthly venerable into the spaceship. The spaceship then sped away from the Twin Oxen Mountain at lightning speed. Emperor Shang looked. Seeing the earthly venerable leaving the auction hall and recalling his hateful gaze, Elder Hong could not help but smile bitterly and ask Shang Jia in private room number 1 for instructions. Just as the earthly venerable was angry, as fellow disciples from the same sect, how could they not help him? However, Emperor Shang had used his divine sense to warn them, so they could only watch as the earthly venerable was captured and lost both his arms and his storage device. Considering the earthly venerable's position in the Yushu Temple and the heavenly venerable's secluded cultivation, they were worried that the earthly venerable would plot against them in the future. Therefore, they could only ask Shang Jia to help resolve the situation. Don't worry, after I get the Supreme Vitality Pill, I will personally go to the Heavenly Palace and talk to the Heavenly Venerable and the Earthly Venerable face to face, Shang Jia assured Elder Hong's request. Thank you, Emperor Shang. After receiving Shang Jia's assurance, Elder Hong and Elder Hong immediately thanked him in surprise. Chapter 1325. In the auction hall, reaching out to take the storage ring from the old man, the child wiped away the remnant earthly venerable's consciousness in the storage ring. In a second stage, first-grade life essence elixir appeared in the child's hand. Little Black, I hope this life essence elixir will allow you to accompany me for a few more years. After feeding the life essence elixir to the black puppy, the child stroked the black puppy's glossy black fur as he sighed and prayed. The old man waved his sleeve and closed the door of the private room. Cough. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran forcibly suppressed the shock that the old man and the child had brought him, as well as the surprise that he had suffered a heavy blow. He cleared his throat and took out the second stage, first-grade Emperor Essence Elixir again. He began to announce the starting price for the Emperor Essence Elixir. The starting bid for the second stage first-grade Emperor Essence Pill is 500 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. Each bid cannot be less than 30 low-grade, 9th-level spiritual veins. Furthermore, no spirit stones of any grade will be accepted for the auction. The auction for the second stage, first-grade Emperor Essence Elixir, will now begin. 1,000 lower level 9 spiritual meridians. Just as Yu Haoran announced the start of the auction hall resounded with a bid that shocked everyone present. They were not shocked by the sky-high price of the spiritual meridians. After all, the Emperor Essence Elixir could help Emperor Wu break through to the next level. It was not surprising that it would be sold at a sky-high price. What really shocked the crowd was that the voice that had rung out just now had come from private room 36. Judging from the 13 terrifying experts who had forcibly occupied the private rooms that originally belonged to the families of inheritance and the Yushu temple, as well as the old man and the child who had broken the arms of an earthly venerable, the crowd clearly understood that the auction for the second stage, first-grade Emperor Essence Elixir, could only be held in private rooms 1 to 11. That was why the crowd was shocked that the owner of Private Room 36 had participated in the auction. GAGA. Accompanied by a strange laughter, a seven-colored snake about 12 to 13 centimeters long suddenly flew out of Private Room 3. The snake spat out its long forked tongue and darted directly into Private Room 36. Then a painful scream came from Room 36. The scream lasted for less than 3 seconds. The colorful snake spat out its forked tongue and left Room 36. It then quickly returned to Room 3. However, the rainbow snake did not immediately enter the private room after returning to the third private room. Instead, it raised its head and looked at Yu Haoran, revealing its sharp fangs. Its tiny eyes revealed a sinister chill. The seven-colored heart-piercing snake contains a poison that is ranked 14th on the Tianxian continent's 100 poisons ranking. Even an almighty expert like Emperor Wu would not be able to withstand its heart-piercing meridians. As the saying goes, if one's heart is carved, one will die. If one's meridians are severed, one will die. The multicolored snake's provocation must have been ordered by the flower-robed old man. So Yu Haoran's response to the provocation was very simple. When he pointed out the specific origin of the multicolored snake, he took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. Then, he directly opened the pill bottle and used his elemental energy to activate the aura of the treasure stored in the pill bottle. He then threatened with a cold smile. Flower-robed old man, if you don't retrieve the seven-colored heart-piercing snake in 3 seconds, I will use its corpse to make a delicious snake soup. This is the aura of the hymen poison. The moment Yu Haoran opened the pill bottle, the seven-colored heart-piercing snake seemed to have sensed the presence of its natural enemy. Its entire body went soft, and it immediately crawled on the ground. Through the spiritual connection with his beast pet, the flower-robed old man who was sitting on the armchair in Private Room 3 stood up abruptly and shouted with a hint of fear in his voice. That's right. As he nodded to confirm the flower-robed old man's guess, Yu Haoran poured out a drop of the Hymen Divine Dragon's blood essence from the pill bottle and started the countdown. 3. As soon as he shouted the countdown, the door of Private Room 9 was opened. The flower-robed old man quickly picked up the seven-colored heart-piercing snake and quickly returned to his room, closing the door behind him. Seeing the flower-robed old man obediently retrieve the seven-colored heart-piercing snake, Yu Haoran smiled and put away the Hymen Divine Dragon's blood essence. He then cupped his hands and gestured to the crowd. I'm sorry, there was a small situation. The auction for the Supreme Vitality Pill will now continue. 1,500 inferior level 9 spiritual veins. As soon as Yu Haoran apologized, the skinny old man from Private Room 11 immediately doubled the price of the heaven-grade spiritual veins. 1,800 inferior level 9 spiritual veins. This was the bid from the owner of Private Room 7. 2,100 inferior level 9 spiritual veins. This was the bid from the owner of Private Room 4. Perhaps the top sects and families did not lack spiritual veins, but the huge consumption of countless people made it difficult for them to take out so many spiritual veins in one go. However, for those old fellows and monsters in Private Room 11, their powerful strength, countless years of accumulation, and the convenience of cultivating alone allowed them to freely use the countless spiritual veins they had accumulated. Therefore, in less than a minute, the price of the spiritual veins exceeded 3,000 spiritual veins. This caused most of the experts in the hall to be dumbfounded. If 3,000 inferior level 9 spiritual veins were exchanged for level 9 grade 1 spiritual stones, it would probably fill up the entire Twin Ox Mountain. No, to fill up 10 or even 20 Twin Ox Mountains, Such a huge amount of spiritual stones had far exceeded the limit of everyone's imagination. In order to nurture the earth sword and the mortal sword, he had stopped all the disciples and most of the elders. At most, he could only gather 30 inferior level 9 spiritual veins. When he saw that Howard casually took out an elixir that could be auctioned off for the Sky Sword Sect's countless years of accumulation, the Sky Sword Sect Master's originally softened belief in Sword Tao began to loosen again. As the Sky Sword Sect Master's belief in Sword Tao continued to loosen, the speed of his Sword Tao luck also increased. Boy, other than the spiritual veins, can we use other treasures to bid? When the price of the spiritual veins reached 3,500 spiritual veins, the flower-robed old man, who had reached his limit, asked with a gloomy expression. Yes, after the accumulation of the previous 8 items, the number of spiritual veins he had now was probably enough for him to cultivate to Emperor Wu's almighty realm. Therefore, after hearing the flower-robed old man's plan, Howard could not help but feel happy. He nodded in agreement and changed his tone. However, it has to be approved and appraised by me first. Although after Howard's appraisal, the number of spiritual veins that could be exchanged for treasures would definitely be much lower. The flower-robed old man could only grit his teeth and nod in agreement in order to obtain the Emperor Yuan pill that could help him break through to Emperor Wu's almighty realm. Chapter 1326. In the auction hall, as the flower-robed old man gritted his teeth in agreement, a fist-sized purple stone floated out from room 3. This is the starlight stone found in the endless void of stars. It can be used to refine supreme-grade immortal weapons. The old man explained in detail as the purple stone floated in front of Howard. Howard, this is a supreme-grade starlight stone. It can be used to refine low-grade immortal weapons. It's worth 70 spirit veins. Through the space in his knowledge sea, the Tower Spirit gave him a more detailed introduction of the Starlight Stone and gave him an approximate exchange price. 60 spirit veins. Howard reduced the price to 10 spirit veins given by Thaling. Deal. The price of 60 spirit veins was exactly what the old man in the flowery robe had estimated in his heart. Therefore, when he agreed readily, a part of his resentment towards Howard dissipated. Take a look at this. The 60 spirit veins and his own spirit veins were not enough for him to participate in the next auction. Therefore, the old man gave out the second treasure, a jade box made of ancient jade. After opening the jade box with a burst of elemental energy, Howard and everyone else in the hall had to close their eyes for a moment. After his eyes adjusted to the dazzling golden light, Howard looked at the jade box in astonishment. It was a golden ginseng that was almost 70% similar to a human being. Yellow, mysterious golden ginseng. After muttering to himself about the origin of the spiritual medicine in the jade box, Howard looked at room 3 and asked, Elder Hua Pao, are you sure you want this yellow, mysterious golden ginseng? I'm not an expert in alchemy, nor have I made friends with top alchemy grandmasters or alchemy emperors. Therefore, this yellow, mysterious golden ginseng has no other use other than chewing it raw. Although he did not give a direct answer, Howard already knew what the old man meant from the way he used the yellow, mysterious golden ginseng. The yellow, profound golden ginseng is one of the main supplementary ingredients for refining the soaring emperor pill. It's extremely rare. As Howard talked to himself about the effects of the yellow, mysterious golden ginseng, he estimated the exchange price. However, he didn't notice that when he mentioned the Emperor Tongue pill, the old guys and old monsters in the 11 private rooms were shocked, especially Shang Jia in the number 1 private room. Senior Hua Pao, I'm going to give you the price of 300 lower level 9 spiritual veins. Do you think it's suitable? After careful calculation, Howard finally gave a price that he thought was fair and reasonable. Little friend, are you sure? Hua Pao asked in disbelief. In his opinion, the yellow, mysterious golden ginseng was only worth about 50 lower level 9 spiritual veins at most. But what he never expected was that Yu Haoran would actually give him 6 times the price he estimated. How could he not be shocked? I'm very sure. Nodding his head, Yu Haoran closed the jade box and reminded him solemnly, if Senior is not satisfied, I can add a portion of the spiritual veins. No need. 600 is enough. Although it was a good thing to be able to increase the price, the impact of 6 times the price made the merciless Hua Pao feel deeply moved and embarrassed to continue increasing the price. He took out 660 lower level 9 spiritual veins and put them into a storage ring. Then, he used Yuan Li to send it to the number 3 private room. After Hua Pao opened the door and took the storage ring, Yu Haoran took the opportunity to put away the brilliant golden rock and the jade box. 4,100 lower level 9 spiritual veins. After closing the door, Hua Pao directly gave out a sky-high price for all the spiritual veins. Little friend, I also have a treasure here that I would like to exchange. Hua Pao's sky-high price for the spiritual veins had already exceeded the price that Hua Pao from the number 7 private room could afford. Therefore, he could only take out his treasures to exchange. Senior, please take out the treasure. Although Yu Haoran's expression was as calm as water, he was overjoyed in his heart. A pitch-black seed floated from the number 7 private room to Yu Haoran. Looking at the pitch-black seed floating in front of him, Yu Haoran, who did not recognize the origin of the seed, could not help but frown. Then, he cupped his hands and apologized to Hua Pao from the number 7 private room. Then, he reached out and pinched the pitch-black seed, hoping to observe it more carefully and at the same time to let Thaling identify it. Yu Haoran, I also do not recognize the origin of this seed, because there was a soul-devouring hound in the number 2 private room that could harm the soul. Thaling could only use all the power of the victor to check it out. However, the result was fruitless. Even the knowledgeable Thaling could not recognize the origin of the pitch-black seed. Yu Haoran could not help but shake his head in disappointment. When he was about to return the pitch-black seed to Hua Pao, he unexpectedly found that his fingers and the black seed formed a very unique painting. And this unique painting awakened a memory from his previous life, letting him know that this pitch-black seed was a heaven-defying treasure that was countless times more precious than the golden ginseng and the level 2 Emperor Yuan pill. Since the old man in the Taoist robe was willing to exchange the seed for the spirit vein, he must not know the true origin of the seed. In order to avoid alerting the old man in the Taoist robe, Yu Haoran said with a frown, Senior, this junior's eyesight is shallow. I really can't recognize the true origin of this seed. I wonder if you can explain the specific origin of this seed in detail. This seed can only be regarded as an ordinary treasure. Little friend, you can name the price? Hua Pao replied somewhat guiltily. This was because just as Yu Haoran had guessed, Hua Pao also did not know the specific origin of the pitch-black seed. He only knew that it was very sturdy. Not only could Hua Pao's divine sense not penetrate it, but he also could not destroy it even if he used all of his strength. Under normal circumstances, the auction house would not purchase such a treasure of unknown origin, or at least purchase it at the lowest price. But with Senior's prestige, buying it at a low price is definitely not possible. Pinching the pitch-black seed back and forth, Yu Haoran said with some difficulty, How about this? Junior will take a risk and treat this seed as a rare treasure. How about I give you the exchange price of 40 lower level 9 spiritual veins? Okay. As if afraid that Yu Haoran would suddenly change his mind, Hua Pao immediately nodded in agreement and took out the second treasure. It was also a jade box made of ancient jade. Chapter 13:27. In the auction hall. Similarly, Yu Haoran opened the jade box with his elemental energy. Looking at the dried branch inside the jade box, Yu Haoran couldn't help but smile bitterly as he raised his head to look at room number 7. Then, he reached out to pick up the dried branch for a detailed inspection. However, a high temperature that could burn his fingers made him immediately withdraw his fingers and look at the withered branch in shock. Yu Haoran, This is a Fusang branch left behind from ancient times. Just as Yu Haoran was shocked by the burning aura contained in the withered branch, Thaling's disdainful evaluation came from his sea of consciousness. If the Fusang branch is separated from the body for 3 years, it could be a top refining material that could be used to refine a top-grade God-state magic weapon. However, after 3 years, it is just a useless withered branch with extremely high temperature. After hearing Thaling's detailed evaluation of the withered branch, Yu Haoran's eyes revealed an extremely disappointed look. He then raised his head and cupped his hands before his chest as he spoke to Room 7. Senior, I'm very sorry. This is just a useless, withered branch of Fusang. I have no use for it. After hearing Yu Haoran's evaluation of the withered branch of Fusang, the Taoist-robed old man immediately retorted, "Young friend, how can it be useless? The high temperature contained in the withered branch is enough to burn a third tribulation Emperor Wu. It is enough to prove that this withered branch has a powerful effect. Senior, perhaps this withered Fusang branch is as you said just now. It possesses a heaven-defying ability that can shake the heavens and shake the earth. However, it is indeed useless to this junior." In the face of the Taoist-robed old man's unreasonable rebuttal, Yu Haoran forcibly suppressed the displeasure in his heart and calmly continued to refuse. For the sake of Senior's prestige, this junior can play the role of a sucker for once, but I can't play the fool again and again. After calmly refusing, Yu Haoran waved his sleeve, and a newly closed jade box floated directly to the door of Room 7. Then, after looking around the 11 rooms on the second floor, he began to read the countdown to the auction of the Emperor Yuan pill, hoping to interrupt the Taoist-robed old man's unreasonable behavior. 4,300 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. The skinny old man with sufficient spirit veins immediately placed a higher bid for the Essence Emperor pill, fearing that the flower-robed old man would win it. Little friend, please take a look at the value of this treasure. A spiritual herb wrapped in elemental energy directly appeared in front of Yu Haoran. The owner of Room 4 used this method to show that he was sincere in exchanging for the spiritual vein. The second stage, 3rd grade star Lotus Heart Blossom, is one of the main auxiliary medicinal materials for refining the second stage, 1st grade star source, congealing spirit pill. With just a glance, Yu Haoran recognized the origin of the medicinal herbs. After thinking for a while, he gave a price for the exchange. 73 spirit veins. Senior, what do you think? Deal. Accompanied by the sound of the deal, 3 more precious spiritual herbs floated from Room 4. Yu Haoran finally successfully obtained 3 spiritual herbs at the price of 400 spiritual veins. In the following period of time, except for Shang Jie in the number 1 private room and the old man in the Taoist robe who thought he was in the wrong, all the experts in the remaining 7 private rooms exchanged 2 to 3 kinds of top treasures. This also forced Yu Haoran, whose spiritual vein was rapidly running out, to take all these top treasures in his pocket through the means of promissory notes. At the same time, after dozens of top treasures were exchanged, the price of the second stage, 1st grade Emperor Yuan pill gradually approached 6,000 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. 5,800 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. The expert in Room 4, who had exchanged for 9 stalks of top-notch spiritual herbs, couldn't help but pray in his heart that no one would be able to bid a higher price. Since the show has already started, it's time for me to make a grand entrance. After waiting for a full 3 minutes, there was still no sound of bidding. Just as Yu Haoran was about to announce the countdown, Shang Jie, who was in private room number 1, stretched his body and said arrogantly. After that, he waved his hand and opened the door to his room. He casually called out the price. 6,000 low-grade, 9th order spiritual veins. Sighed. After Shang Jie called out the sky-high price, the other 9 rooms sighed in disappointment. In fact, the other 12 experts had put in all their effort to bid for the Emperor Yuan pill because they had a glimmer of hope that Shang Jie, who was the strongest among them, wouldn't participate in the auction. After all, Shang Jie's origin power and soul power had already reached the Emperor Wu's level. He had the potential to break through the Emperor Wu's level with his talent. However, Shang Jie couldn't resist the temptation of the Emperor Yuan pill in the end. He offered a sky-high price for the second stage, first-grade Emperor Yuan pill. Apart from the old man and the young man in room 2, who had never made a bid before, 6,000 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins were already an unimaginable price. Therefore, after Shang Jie placed a sky-high bid, Yu Haoran first glanced at private room number 2. After confirming that the old man and the young man in room 2 wouldn't make a bid, he started to announce the countdown for the Emperor Yuan pill. After 3 countdowns, Yu Haoran announced the ownership of the second-grade, first-grade Emperor Essence pill in a loud voice. At the same time, he wrapped the Emperor Essence pill with his essence energy and sent it to room number 1. Shang Jie stretched out his hand to absorb the Emperor Yuan pill that was floating in front of the room. After checking it, he nodded in satisfaction. After that, he placed the Emperor Yuan pill into a pill bottle and kept it in his storage item. After that, he stood up and was about to leave room 1. Elder, where are the 6,000 low-grade, ninth-order spiritual veins that you bid for? Yu Haoran reminded Shang Jie when he saw Shang Jie keeping the Emperor Yuan pill but not taking out the spiritual veins. I owe you. Shang Jie looked at Yu Haoran contemptuously and walked out of the room. Then he flew toward the hole in the roof that he had made previously. Ever since I, Yu Haoran, started my career, I have always been the one taking advantage of others. No one has ever taken advantage of me. Looking at Shang Jie, who was flying out of the auction venue, Yu Haoran roared in a low voice with burning anger. Shang Jie, since you were the one who started this, don't blame me, Yu Haoran, for being unjust. He quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. Every seal he formed disappeared in midair. After the 9 seals had all disappeared, a deafening roar suddenly came from the void above the auction venue. Shang Jie's exasperated roar was accompanied by the deafening roar. Young man, not only did you destroy the Emperor Yuan pill, but you also destroyed my collection of tens of thousands of years. I will kill you. Sizzle. The Emperor Yuan pill, which could help Emperor Wu break through to the next realm, was destroyed just like that. Shang Jie's storage item was also destroyed because of it. Chapter 1328. In the auction hall, after taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran took out the elixir bottle that contained the blood essence of the divine dragon of Heyman. He raised his head and looked at Shang Jie, who was rushing toward the auction hall, with a determined look in his eyes. In fact, Yu Haoran and Thaling had already considered the possibility of the Emperor Vitality elixir being snatched away when they decided to auction it off. Therefore, he had used the pill condensation technique of nothingness and the secret technique that Thaling had taught him to leave a forbidden technique inside the Emperor Vitality elixir. At the same time, considering that he would definitely suffer the bloody revenge of the other party if he destroyed the Emperor Vitality elixir, Thaling had taught him a secret technique after careful consideration. It was a secret technique that could turn the blood essence of the divine dragon of Heyman into a sea of blood and then kill the opponent with Heyman's poison. Of course, if he wanted to successfully use such a secret technique, he would have to pay a heavy price. He would have to sacrifice 2/3 of his life and 2/3 of his blood. After breaking through the martial honored realm, he would gain 5,000 years of life. The powerful hematopoiesis of the wizard ancestor's physical body could greatly reduce the damage caused by the side effects. However, there were less than 2 days before the Hidden Dragon Roll contest. If he used the secret technique that would overdraw his life and blood now, it would be no different from giving up on the Hidden Dragon Roll contest. In order to retaliate against Shang Jie's bullying and to prevent any flaws in his state of mind, Yu Haoran finally chose to give up on the Hidden Dragon Roll contest. Junior, Shang Jie, who had returned to the auction hall, saw Yu Haoran standing on a high platform. He gritted his teeth and growled in a low voice. Then, He stretched out his hand to grab Yu Haoran. Faced with the fast-approaching hand, Yu Haoran used Phalanx Victor to remove the lock on his aura. Then, he poured the blood essence of the divine dragon of Hey Man into his mouth. However, just as the blood essence was about to drip out of the elixir bottle into his mouth, a black hand grabbed the elixir bottle and waved its sleeve to repel Shang Jie's hand. Senior Yu, looking at the black nirvana heavenly flame that had suddenly saved him, Yu Haoran didn't know what to say. After all, he didn't have any relationship with the black nirvana flame. Even a liquid of the origin ginseng was obtained by the other party through the auction of 90 lower grade 9 spirit veins. If your alchemy skills reach the pill emperor level, will you be able to concoct the second tier 9th grade life returning pill? The dark nirvana heavenly flame asked in a hoarse voice after returning the pill bottle that contained the blood essence of the dark dragon to Yu Haoran. After hearing the black nirvana heavenly flame's question, Yu Haoran's body involuntarily trembled. He looked at the black nirvana heavenly flame in disbelief and asked, "Senior, do you know the effects of the life-returning pill?" Nodding its head, the black nirvana heavenly flame replied, "Sever your past and present lives and obtain a brand new opportunity." "Senior, why do you have to do this?" Seeing that the black nirvana heavenly flame was very clear about the effects of the second-tier 9th grade life returning pill, Yu Haoran quickly adjusted his emotions and bitterly smiled. Right now, the world is undergoing a change. Giving up the strength to protect yourself to pursue an ethereal new life isn't worth it and is too risky. If you don't want to die, then obediently stand there and don't move. Just as it wanted to reply to Yu Haoran's advice, it unexpectedly felt Shang Jie take out his origin sword and was about to use his strongest attack. The black nirvana heavenly flame coldly threatened. "Otherwise, I'll take your life right now. Is that so?" Facing the threat of the black nirvana heavenly flame, Shang Jie was so angry that he laughed and provoked. "In that case, this emperor would like to see what kind of tricks a sneaky fellow like you has up your sleeves to decide my life and death." Oomph. Facing Shang Jie's provocation, the black nirvana flame coldly snorted and flicked a flame from its black finger. The flame crossed the distance of time and space and instantly appeared in front of Shang Jie, who was about to swing his natal sword. A strong fatal threat and an aura that couldn't be avoided caused Shang Jie to stand there motionlessly with a pale face. His eyes were filled with extreme fear. Although Shang Jie was a peak 3rd tribulation quasi-martial emperor whose origin energy and divine soul had advanced to the martial emperor realm, the dark nirvana heavenly flame was an almighty martial emperor who could ignore the suppression of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, Yu Haoran wasn't surprised that the black nirvana heavenly flame could easily use a flame to suppress Shang Jie. Ignoring the pale Shang Jie, the black nirvana heavenly flame continued. "It is precisely because the world is undergoing a change that I want to use the second-tier 9th grade life returning pill to obtain a new life that can allow me to reach the peak of the martial path. Senior, do you really not regret giving up the main body that everyone covets and condensing an ordinary and weak body?" After seeing the black nirvana heavenly flame's ambition, Yu Haoran finally decided to help it fulfill its wish. This was to repay the favor of saving his life and also to admire its decisiveness. However, before this, he still needed to confirm the black nirvana heavenly flame's determination, the main body that everyone covets. After hearing Yu Haoran mention its secret, the black nirvana heavenly flame couldn't help but tremble slightly and ask in a frosty voice, "Do you know who I am?" "I know." Ignoring the black nirvana heavenly flame's change in attitude, Yu Haoran nodded and directly expressed his attitude. "But Junior has no interest in Senior's main body, so Senior doesn't need to worry about Junior's greed after the soul leaves the main body." "Thank you." As a heavenly flame at the Emperor Wu level, the black nirvana heavenly flame could feel Yu Haoran's attitude, so it nodded and thanked him. "Senior, if you only need the rank 2 first grade life returning pill, Then Junior will be able to refine it when Junior breaks through to the pill Emperor level. Moreover, the success rate of refining the pill will be 30%. Seeing that the Black Nirvana Heavenly Flame believed his promise, Yuharan secretly let out a sigh of relief. He gave the Black Nirvana Heavenly Flame different times and times to refine the life-returning pill. But if you need the rank 2 9th grade life-returning pill, then Junior will have to wait until Junior's pill Tao cultivation reaches the large success stage of the pill Emperor level. Only then will I have a certain amount of confidence in refining it. How long will it take for your pill Tao cultivation to reach the large success stage of the pill Emperor level? Although the rank 2 first grade life returning pill could satisfy the requirement of leaving the main body and allowing the soul to be reborn, the risk involved was too great. Unless it was in a desperate situation, the Black Nirvana Heavenly Flame still wanted the safer rank 2 9th grade life returning pill. The shortest is 10 years. The longest is 100 years. Yuharan replied with some uncertainty. Because in order to reach the pill Emperor level, aside from refining large amounts of rank 3 and rank 2 top grade pills, it also required a lot of opportunities and comprehension to break through. Therefore, he couldn't estimate the specific time to break through like a pill Tao Grandmaster or Great Grandmaster. Chapter 1329. Inside the Auction. The shortest was 10 years, and the longest was 100 years. The time needed for a pill Emperor to advance to the great success stage was so long that Yuharan's unconfident answer made the Black Nirvana Heavenly Fire frown. The moment the 5 regions hidden dragon ranking competition ended, the complete Heavenly Tao rules would enter a dormant state. A portion of the power of laws and heaven and earth spirit chi sealed by the Heavenly Tao rules would return, and all living beings would temporarily be free from the rule's surveillance and restraint. At that time, not only would it be easier to cultivate and break through, but all living beings would also have the opportunity and hope to break through to a higher realm. More importantly, without the surveillance and restraint of the Heavenly Tao rules, some forbidden secret techniques that were originally forbidden by the rules could not only be easily used, but the backlash from the secret technique would also be weakened. This was also the best time for it to use the life-returning pill to break free from the restrictions of the Heavenly Fire and use the forbidden secret technique to regain a new life. However, the Heavenly Tao rules would not remain dormant. When the Heavenly Tao rules completely awakened, all living beings would not only be under the surveillance and restraint of the rules again, but it would also be hundreds of times more difficult to break through to the martial saint realm. At that time, the entire Tianxian continent would be in an era where Emperor Wu was truly extinct, where martial saints ruled the world and martial saints ruled the world. After thinking deeply for a while, the Black Nirvana Heavenly Fire finally decided to take 2 steps. First, it would let Yuharan help it refine the level 2 first rank life returning pill. Then, it would wait for Yuharan's alchemy cultivation to increase. If Yuharan's alchemy cultivation base was able to reach the realm of greater mastery before the Heavenly Tao truly entered a dormant state, then he would entrust Yuharan to concoct the Grade 2, Grade 9 life-returning pill. If Yuharan's alchemy cultivation could not advance to the great success stage when the Heavenly Tao rules were about to awaken, then it would risk using the level 2, first rank life returning pill to perform the forbidden secret technique. However, before that, it needed to seek Yuharan's permission. After all, as someone who had lived in this world for a long time, he was very clear about the price of asking an pill Emperor Alchemist to refine pills. This was also the reason why he didn't come forward to ask for help at the beginning. He waited until Yuharan's life was in danger, and only then did he act in time to save him. After making a decision, the Black Nirvana Heavenly Flame turned to look at Shang Jie, who had been killed by the Heavenly Flame. It raised its left hand and snapped its finger. Pot, along with the crisp snap of a finger, the flame that was originally floating in front of Shang Jie's forehead instantly turned into a raging fire, and then directly enveloped him completely. Whether this person lives or dies is up to you. The black nirvana heavenly flame indicated as it pointed at Shang Jie, who was completely enveloped by the raging flames. Yu Haoran had more or less guessed the black nirvana flame's unexpected gesture of goodwill and letting him decide Shang Jie's life or death. Regardless of whether it was refining the level 2 life returning elixir or the level 2 life returning elixir, other than increasing his alchemy experience, it didn't take much time. Not to mention, if the black nirvana heavenly flame wanted to obtain a higher grade life returning elixir, then it needed to protect his own safety. This was a good thing with no harm. Thinking about this, Yu Haoran already had an idea in his heart as he walked in front of Shang Jie and asked with a happy smile on his face, "Shang Jie, do you want to die or live?" Facing Yu Haoran's threat, Shang Jie wasn't afraid at all as he sneered and asked back, "Do you dare to kill me?" Huh. Facing Shang Jie's question, Yu Haoran couldn't help but laugh loudly. After laughing for nearly a minute, Yu Haoran instantly put away his smile and coldly replied with a trace of madness, "Shang Jie, there is no one in this world that I, Yu Haoran, don't dare to kill. Oh, then come at me." Shang Jie looked at Yu Haoran with disdain as he provoked him in disbelief. Emperor's son-in-law, Shang Jie, is from the Shang clan of the Middle Ages and was the previous clan leader of the Shang clan. Facing Shang Jie's disdainful provocation, Yu Haoran's anger was aroused and thick, killing intent appeared in his eyes. Just as he wanted to use the black nirvana heavenly flame to burn Shang Jie to death, Forefather Zhou's telepathic reminder sounded in his ear. The Shang clan is a powerful clan that doesn't lose to my Zhou clan in strength. Moreover, the Shang clan is inextricably linked to the 4 guardian clans, so Emperor's son-in-law must not be impulsive and make a big mistake. Hearing Forefather Zhou's reminder, the thick killing intent in Yu Haoran's eyes gradually dissipated and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes as he looked at Shang Jie. Fear, not fear the Shang clan and the 4 guardian clan's strength, but worry that his loved ones would be harmed. After all, he was different from before. In the past, when he was alone, he could ignore the threat of any expert or faction and do as he pleased. But now, he needed to worry about his wife and the safety of his sister and friends. Come, seeing that the thick killing intent in Yu Haoran's eyes was replaced by a trace of fear, Shang Jie turned to look at Forefather Zhou and immediately knew that Forefather Zhou had secretly told him of his origins and the strength of the Shang clan. Not only did Shang Jie not care about this, he even provoked Yu Haoran even more proudly. "Junior, weren't you quite arrogant just now? Didn't you say that there was no one in this world that you didn't dare to kill? Then do it." Originally, the worry that emerged in his heart had already made Yu Haoran decide to let Shang Jie live for the time being. But in the face of Shang Jie's arrogant provocation, the fear that had just emerged was immediately replaced by madness. Because from Shang Jie's continuous provocation, he more or less understood this person's personality. Even if he let Shang Jie live out of fear for the safety of his friends and family, Shang Jie probably wouldn't let it go so easily. After all, not only did he destroy the second-tier first-grade Emperor Essence Pill, but he also indirectly destroyed Shang Jie's thousands of years of collection. At the same time, considering that the Southern and 5 regions Hidden Dragon ranking competition was still ongoing, the Tianxian continent prohibited all disputes over personal grudges. This would give him sufficient time to increase his cultivation and strength, as well as the opportunity to increase the Prince's Mansion's defense. Moreover, from the fact that the flower-robed old man dared to snatch the pill bottle and how Shang Jie ignored his existence, Yu Haoran knew that he still didn't have enough weight in the eyes of some of the top experts and major forces. Since that was the case, why not use the death of the Shang clan's previous clan leader Shang Jie as a warning to those experts and forces who look down on him? I, Yu Haoran, am a fearless person who will be angered when provoked and go crazy when provoked. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran turned to instruct the Dark Nirvana Heavenly Fire. Senior, when Junior's alchemy cultivation breaks through to the Pill Emperor realm, Junior will help you concoct a second-tier, first-grade life-returning pill. When Junior's alchemy cultivation reaches the great success stage, Junior will help you concoct a second-tier, ninth-grade life-returning pill. When he directly jumped off the high platform, Yuhaoran raised his head and glanced at the number 2 private room. Then, when he walked out of the auction venue, he left behind a sentence that made everyone tremble in fear. I'll have to trouble Senior to fulfill Senior Shang Jie's last wish and send him on his way. Chapter 1330. Inside the auction house. Shang Jie's pride was instantly replaced by fear when he heard the decisiveness in Yuhaoran's words when he ordered the Dark Nirvana, Heavenly Fire, to leave the auction house. He threatened Yuhaoran with a slightly frightened expression. Junior, if you dare to kill me, the countless experts of my Shang clan will directly destroy the great Emperor Qin Kingdom and the 100 Qi Gate, exterminating all your relatives. Yuhaoran ignored Shang Jie's threat and walked out of the auction house. Then, he went straight to the Yuan Pavilion where he used to live. Seeing that Yuhaoran not only guessed its thoughts, but also took the initiative to make a promise, the Dark Nirvana, Heavenly Fire, was pleasantly surprised. It immediately followed Yuhaoran's instructions and snapped its fingers slightly. The raging flames that enveloped it began to gather. The threat of death constantly approaching and Yuhaoran's resolute departure made Shang Jie truly fearful. At the same time, the target of his pleas also shifted to the Dark Nirvana, Heavenly Fire. Senior, my Shang clan's inheritance dates back to the beginning of the Middle Ages and has ruled the Middle Ages for more than 13,700 years. We have collected countless heaven-defying treasures, including some innate treasures left behind from the ancient times. As long as Senior can let me, Shang Jie, live, then you can choose any of the treasures in my Shang clan's collection. Moreover, there is no limit to the number. Unfortunately, the Dark Nirvana, Heavenly Fire, wasn't moved at all by Shang Jie's promise and allowed the raging flames to burn Shang Jie to ashes. Shang Jie was someone who could use his prestige to force the master of the Yushu Temple's underground palace, the Earthly Venerable, to give up the number 1 private room in humiliation. Seeing the once insufferably arrogant Shang Jie completely turn into a small pile of white ashes, a complicated expression appeared in everyone's eyes, especially for the 12 terrifying experts. Not only did they have a deeper feeling in their hearts, but they also had a new understanding of Yuhaoran's madness. Grandpa Ian, what do you think? After watching Yuhaoran leave the auction venue, the fair and tender child stroked the black puppy's head and asked thoughtfully, "This child's talent is extremely good. He has a firm heart and acts decisively. He has the qualifications to assist the Emperor in the Overlord battle." Faced with the fair child's question, the old man carefully considered for a moment before giving his opinion. He has the qualifications and ability, but his cultivation and strength is still lacking. Leave a talisman behind to continue the examination. The fair child nodded in agreement with the old man's evaluation, and at the same time, he took out a token that was emitting dense soul power. This old servant obeys. Reaching out to take the demon token from the fair and tender child, the old man acknowledged the order and silently disappeared from the room. Yuan Pavilion, Wind Pavilion, Yuahorn. Emperor, NN, Lord. Thaling, what do you think that Dark Nirvana child wants to do? Yuhaoran, I know very little about the Dark Nirvana tribe of the ancient times. I can't guess what they want to do. Thaling looked at Yuhaoran, who was holding the demon's token tightly. He couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes, but he also couldn't hide the nervousness in his eyes. He was very clear about the powerful effect this token had on one's soul power. He also knew what this token represented. He also knew what kind of heaven-defying opportunity this token could bring to Yuhaoran. However, when faced with Yuhaoran's questioning, he immediately hid the surprise and nervousness in his eyes and pretended to know nothing. Yuhaoran couldn't help but frown when he heard Thaling's ignorant reply. After much consideration, he finally decided to play it safe and throw away the token. As the saying goes, one who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Since he didn't know if there were hidden dangers in this token that could monitor or threaten him, the safest way was to throw it away. You, Howren, I just used my divine thought to examine this token carefully. I found that this token can automatically absorb the scattered soul power between heaven and earth. After being transformed by a special charm in the token, it condenses the purest soul power. At the same time, there are no dangers or hidden dangers in the token. Thowling quickly tried to persuade you, Howren, when he heard that he was going to give up the heaven-defying opportunity that was already in his hands. Moreover, that dark Nirvana child and the old man are very powerful. Even if I use my true victor, I'm still not their match for the time being. So, I think it's better for you to keep the token for the time being. This way, you can use the pure soul power in the token to improve your cultivation and strength, and also avoid arousing their hostility and causing unnecessary trouble. All right. Yu Howren nodded in agreement after careful consideration to Thowling's persuasion and reminder. He directly put the token into the storage ring, and then looked up at Bian Xingray and Yun Xiang, who stepped into the courtyard. Prince Consort, I can't thank you enough. If you need me, Bian Xingray, in the future, you could directly tell me. After quickly walking into the pavilion, Bian Xingray promised excitedly. The final price of each of the 10 auction items was enough to be recorded in the history of the auction. Each auction item was enough to cause a tsunami of shock. Each auction item was enough to make the reputation of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce and his reputation, which was responsible for organizing and maintaining the auction, improve beyond imagination. He had no way to repay this kindness, so he could only promise to help with all his strength. Shaking his head to indicate that Bian Xingru didn't need to be too polite, Yu Howren motioned him and Yun Xiang to sit down, and then asked with a solemn expression, "Great Elder, did the 12 terrifying experts leave?" "No, they're still in the private room of the auction venue." Bian Xingru replied, "Great Elder, please send someone to invite the 12 terrifying experts to Yuan Pavilion. Tell them that I, Yu Howren, will give them an explanation." Taking a deep breath, Yu Howren ordered. The well-planned auction, in addition to some increase in fame and reputation, could be said to have suffered a heavy loss in the harvest of the spiritual vein. Not only were the spiritual veins obtained from the auction of the Supreme Huazuan Pill, the ginseng liquid, and the magic weapon were all lost, but now he still owed a lot of debts. Although he could recover part of the loss of the spiritual vein by exchanging the dozens of treasures back, he didn't want to do so. Firstly, the dozens of treasures were very rare treasures, which could not only rapidly increase his cultivation and strength, but also greatly improve his alchemy realm. Secondly, he also wanted to establish a certain interest relationship with the 12 terrifying experts through the debt of the dozens of treasures, so as to deal with the danger brought by the Shang clan. Chapter 1331. Yuan Pavilion. In the Wind Pavilion. I'll invite them myself. Bian Xingru could guess the reason why Yu Howren invited the 12 terrifying experts to Yuan Pavilion. At the same time, he was also clear about the temperament of those terrifying experts. Therefore, Bian Xingru directly got up and went to invite the 12 terrifying experts personally. "Thank you, First Elder." After thanking Bian Xingru and watching him leave Yuan Pavilion, Yu Howren looked at Yun Xiang. Her cultivation was at the peak of the 9th grade martial ancestor realm. She also possessed the spectral soul devouring venom physique. If it was the previous Southern Region Hidden Dragon ranking contest, Yun Xiang would have had the qualifications to participate. Furthermore, she would have had the opportunity to obtain a relatively good ranking. However, this time, only the experts of the Martial Saint realm were qualified to participate in the Hidden Dragon ranking competition between the Southern Region and the 5 regions. Only the monstrous geniuses of the peak of the 9th level of Martial Saint realm were qualified to compete for the top 100. With Yunxiang's current cultivation and strength, she might not even be able to pass the 3 tests of the preliminary competition. Therefore, after thinking about it again and again, Yuhaoran finally decided to let her give up the hidden dragon ranking competition to avoid unpredictable dangers. Master, I know. Although Yunxiang was unwilling to give up the hidden dragon ranking competition in the central region, she knew that her master was thinking about her safety. She could only nod and agree helplessly. Yunxiang, now you're already at the peak of the 9th level of Martial Grandmaster Realm. With the body of the Ghost Devourer, even the experts of the Martial Royal Realm can hardly hurt you. Not participating in the hidden dragon ranking competition in the central region did not mean that Yunxiang could continue to stay in the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce to cultivate without worries. As for her following cultivation arrangements, Yuhaoran had already thought about it when he decided to hold this auction. Therefore, you directly ask the first elder to leave and then go to the Holy Poison Sect at the border between the central region and the eastern region. Let your junior sister Heyman be responsible for arranging the training in the periphery of the Mirror Lake Forest. Yunxiang, who had never trained by herself before, felt an uncontrollable excitement and a trace of nervousness when she heard her master's instructions. So for a moment, she actually forgot to respond to her master's instructions. Regarding this, Yuhaoran did not care at all. He directly took out the life-saving jade pendant that he had refined beforehand, as well as a puppet that had been modified by Thaling and possessed the strength of a peak 7th grade martial saint. Then, he handed them to Yunxiang and solemnly instructed her. Yunxiang, you can only use the life-saving jade pendant and puppet that I gave you when you encounter fatal danger that you cannot resist. Master, I understand. Yunxiang nodded and accepted the jade pendant and puppet. She also solemnly promised. Yunxiang will definitely not disappoint Master. She will definitely improve her poison Dao cultivation and strength through the training in the Mirror Lake Forest. Yuhaoran nodded in satisfaction at Yunxiang's solemn promise. Then, he turned his head and looked at the courtyard door that was pushed open. He immediately stood up to welcome and apologize. Seniors, I'm really sorry. I lost control of my emotions for a moment. In order to avoid making a fool of myself, I can only temporarily leave the auction venue. Faced with Yuhaoran's apology, whether it was the Starseed Elder who already had an agreement with him to refine pills, the flower-robed old man who had a conflict with him, or the Taoist-robed old man who wanted to harm him, they all hurriedly waved their hands to indicate that it was fine. Seniors, due to Shang Jie's betrayal, not only was the 2nd grade, 1st grade Emperor Essence pill destroyed, but also caused me to lose the spirit vein to pay you. After cupping his fists and thanking them, Yuhaoran invited everyone into the pavilion. After taking out the dozens of treasures that he had traded, he said, "These treasures are the treasures that I exchanged with you during the auction of the Emperor Essence pill. Since I am unable to support the spirit vein in exchange for the treasures, then you can take back these treasures now or continue to use these treasures to trade with me." The flower-robed old man, the skinny old man, and the others looked at each other and finally looked at the Starseed Elder. Obviously, they were very interested in the continued trade that Yuhaoran had mentioned just now. At the same time, not only did the Starseed Elder have a good relationship with Yuhaoran, but they also had an agreement to refine pills. Therefore, they hoped that the Starseed Elder could represent everyone to talk to Yuhaoran in detail. Little friend, you know that for hidden experts like us, the one thing we don't lack is spirit veins. In the face of everyone's pleading gazes, the Starseed Elder nodded straightforwardly and said to Yuhaoran, "So, we want to know what the chips are for the continued trade that you mentioned just now?" "Pills," Yuhaoran replied with an indifferent smile. "If you are willing to continue to use these treasures to trade, then I promise to refine pills for you for free once after my alchemy cultivation breaks through to the Pill Emperor realm." Although they had already guessed that Yuhaoran wanted to continue the trade by using pills, they couldn't help but feel happy when they really got his confirmation. The flower-robed old man, who was more impulsive, couldn't help but ask directly, "Little friend, is there a specific limit to the pills that you can refine for free?" "Senior, there is no limit to any grade or type. As long as it is a pill that I can refine, it is fine. Yu Haoran replied generously. Little friend, then I wonder if you can refine a rank 2, rank 19 realm soul severing pill? Yu Haoran's generous reply made the flower-robed old man's eyes full of expectation. He asked with a slightly trembling voice, after my alchemy cultivation breaks through to the pill Emperor realm, I have 70% confidence that I can refine a rank 2, rank 19 realm soul severing pill. The 9 realm soul severing pill was a special poison pill that contained a strong poison. The poison pill was divided into 9 ranks, which corresponded to the 9 realms of a cultivator's cultivation. The 9 realm soul severing pill could poison living beings of different realms, and it could also raise the cultivation and grade of living beings of different realms that contained a strong poison. The rank 2, rank 19 realms soul severing pill corresponded to Emperor Wu's realm. It had basically reached the limit of this kind of pill. Not only was the refining process very difficult, but it also required 49 types of poisonous medicinal herbs that were rare. Therefore, after nodding in reply to the flower-robed old man, Yu Haoran changed the tone of his request. However, the medicinal herbs needed to refine a rank 2, rank 19 realm soul severing pill will need to be prepared by senior. According to the rules of the Tianxian continent for requesting alchemists to refine pills, not only did the requesting alchemist need to provide 3 sets of medicinal herbs to refine the pill, but they also needed to give the alchemist was willing to refine the pill. Therefore, in response to Yu Haoran's request, the flower-robed old man, who was excited, immediately nodded in agreement. Little friend, don't worry. When the South Region Hidden Dragon ranking competition ends, I will prepare 3 sets of medicinal herbs needed to refine a rank 2, rank 19 realm soul severing pill. Nodding, Yu Haoran put away the 7 treasures that he had exchanged with the flower-robed old man during the auction of the Emperor Vitality pill. Then he looked at the other 11 terrifying experts. Little friend, I wonder if you can refine a rank 2, rank 1 7 treasures soul recovery pill? Facing Yu Haoran's gaze, the skinny old man asked nervously. Little friend, I wonder if you can refine a rank 2, rank 3 soul cleansing pill? The old man in the Taoist robe asked expectantly. After more than an hour of questioning and replies, as well as answers to all kinds of questions, Yu Haoran finally succeeded in keeping all the treasures that had been exchanged during the auction of the Emperor Vitality pill at the price of refining 11 kinds of top-notch second-level pills. After watching the 12 terrifying experts leave Yiyuan Pavilion, Yu Haoran bid farewell to Bian Xingrue and Yunxiang and flew directly to Xianying City. Chapter 1332. The Hidden Dragon Fortress in the southern region was about 13,000 kilometers away from the Double Bull Mountain. It was located on a flat grassland. The Hidden Dragon Fortress was different from the normal cities in the Tianxian continent. Not only were the 4 walls more than 100 meters tall, but there were also no gates on the 4 walls. If one wanted to enter the fortress, they would have to rely on their own strength to leap over the 100-meter wall. As long as a martial artist successfully reached the martial master level, they would be able to use the cloud climbing stairs martial technique with their external Yuanli to leap a few hundred meters. However, as the Hidden Dragon Fortress that hosted the Hidden Dragon ranking competition, it would not allow normal martial artists to leap over the wall so easily. With every meter of the 100-meter wall, the aura formed by the Hidden Dragon fate would increase by a few times. Therefore, to successfully leap over the 100-meter wall and enter the fortress, not only would one need to be at the martial ancestor level or above, one's own strength would also need to be much stronger than one's cultivation. This was also a test for the participants of the Hidden Dragon ranking competition. Looking up at the 100-meter wall, Yu Haoran could not help but feel excited even though his mental state had already reached the level of a martial saint. In his previous life, the Hidden Dragon ranking competition had been held more than 10 times. In the beginning, it was limited by one's own cultivation and strength, and in the end, it was limited by one's age. He had only heard of the Hidden Dragon Fortress, but had never set foot in it. This was because of the difficulty of cultivation and also because of the inferiority in his heart. However, this time, not only would he set foot in the Hidden Dragon Fortress of the Southern region and the 5 regions, but he would also try to become the champion of the Hidden Dragon ranking competition and leave his name on the Hidden Dragon ranking forever. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran dispelled the emotions in his heart. He turned his head to look at Qin Lingfei, Yu Siki, Wu Jingjun, Lin Xian, and the dozens of elite disciples of the imperial family who were temporarily ungrounded after some discussion and compromise. Since the moment we arrived at the Hidden Dragon Fortress, the Hidden Dragon ranking competition has officially begun. Whether it's crossing the 100-meter tall wall or your performance in the Hidden Dragon Fortress, it's all related to whether you can enter the final. After finishing the auction at Mount Shuangniu and returning to the prince's mansion in Xianyang City, the Emperor Qin, together with the 9 princes and 13 county kings of the imperial family, paid a visit to him and apologized. Then, they begged him to be the leader of the imperial family of the Qin Kingdom in the Hidden Dragon rankings, and to manage and take care of the several dozen elite members of the imperial family. Although he himself was not willing to get involved in these troublesome affairs, the Qin Emperor, with the cooperation of 9 princes and 13 county princes, spent less than 2 days to successfully quell the disturbances caused by the 3 major aristocratic families. For hereditary princes with different surnames, 8 first-class clans, and dozens of powerful clans, except for the Meng clan. Therefore, for the sake of Emperor Qin could only agree to be the leader of the contestants in the end, and to take care of them as long as it was within his ability. Therefore, from now on, all of you must increase your energy by 10 times or even 100 times. You must not, because of a moment of carelessness, in the end, you will fall into small details leading to the finals of the Hidden Dragon rankings, and thus lose the chance to become famous. Yes, Prince Consort. A total of 43 elite members of the imperial family responded loudly. Enter the castle. Seeing the 43 elite members of the imperial family, who had been taught a lesson, become much more respectful towards him, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction, and then ordered with an indifferent expression. After receiving Yu Haoran's order, the 43 elite members of the imperial family all rushed to the 100-meter tall wall, and then used all their strength to start climbing the wall. Although the aura formed by the Hidden Dragon luck would increase by several times with every meter of the 100-meter tall wall, the 43 elite members of the imperial family were all top geniuses with peerless talent, and the weakest among them was at the peak of the 3rd-grade martial saint. Therefore, they could be considered to have successfully climbed the 100-meter tall wall and successfully entered the castle. Go! After the last elite member of the imperial family successfully entered the castle, Yu Haoran signaled to Wu Jingjun and Lin Xian. After nodding in response, Wu Jingjun and Lin Xian walked to the bottom of the wall, hand in hand. Mobilizing all the origin energy in his dantian and soul power in his mind, Lin Xian took a deep breath with a serious expression. Then he resisted the aura formed by the Hidden Dragon luck and soared into the sky, heading straight for the 100-meter tall wall. After rushing 98 meters in one go, the powerful aura formed by the Hidden Dragon luck caused Lin Xian to pause for a moment at 99 meters. Fortunately, with the help of a large number of top-notch pills and the rich Xianhuang qi in the prince's mansion, Lin Xian successfully broke through to the martial saint realm, and finally broke through the suppression of the Hidden Dragon luck, successfully leaping over the 100-meter tall wall and entering the castle. Seeing that Lin Xian had successfully entered the castle, Wu Jingjun didn't mobilize any origin energy or soul power. Instead, he lightly stepped on the ground with his left foot, and his entire body shot over the 100-meter tall wall like a cannonball. Without using any origin energy or soul power, he was able to directly break through the terrifying aura formed by the Hidden Dragon luck with just his physical strength. This young man's strength cannot be underestimated. I'm afraid he has the strength to enter the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. After Wu Zhenjun easily crossed the 100-meter-long city wall, a white-haired old man in a white robe, who was about 70 years old, commented with admiration in his eyes on the top floor of a pavilion in the center of the hidden dragon fortress. Continue to observe for a while. If his temperament and talent are suitable, the Black Dragon Messenger will come out and invite him to join the World Cleansing Organization. After the white-haired elder's praise, a middle-aged man around 40 years old, wearing a long purple robe, who was also sitting cross-legged with his legs crossed, ordered, "Yes, Black Dragon." An elder in a long black robe, who was sitting cross-legged with the white-haired elder in the white robe, nodded with a cold expression. "Ling Fei, elder sister, let's go." After Wu Zhengjun easily rushed into the castle, Yu Haoran smiled and instructed Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki. Although they didn't have a strong physical body like Wu Zhenjun, Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki also easily crossed the 100-meter-tall wall and entered the castle with less than 30% of their strength. One has the profound Yin Soul Fire, the other has the Azure Lunar Flame, and the other has the legendary Special Body Constitution. These two girls probably have the strength to enter the top 50. After Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki easily entered the castle, a 70-year-old white-haired elder in a long red robe couldn't help but praise. Continue to observe for a while. If his temperament and talent are suitable, the Red Dragon Messenger will come out and invite him to join the World Cleansing Organization. The purple-robed middle-aged man withdrew his gaze and instructed the red-haired elder who had just praised Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki. Chapter 1333. In front of the hidden dragon castle. Seeing Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki easily leap over the 100-meter-tall wall and enter the castle, Yu Haoran smiled indifferently. He did not rush into the castle with his powerful body like Wu Zhengjun, nor did he leap over the 100-meter-tall wall with his cultivation like Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki. Instead, he activated his ancestral witch body and transformed into a 2,000-meter-tall ancestral witch. He stepped over the 100-meter-tall wall and easily entered the castle. Seeing Yu Haoran use the secret transformation method to enter the castle, the 7 terrifying experts in the loft were slightly stunned. Then disdain flashed in their eyes. An opportunistic person, even if he has great talent and potential, he will never be able to reach the level of Emperor Wu. The Pure World Organization does not need such trash. After giving Yu Haoran a disappointing evaluation, the purple-robed middle-aged expert's eyes flashed with disdain. He also completely cut off his hope of joining the real top forces in the Tianxian continent. "Damn it, you dare to sneak attack me. I think you are tired of living." Because the 100-meter-tall wall of the hidden dragon castle had the effect of shielding divine sense, Yu Haoran was unable to know the situation inside the castle. Therefore, when his mountain-like left foot stepped into the castle, it just so happened to step on a young expert who was strolling in the castle. Looking at the mountain-like foot that was about to step on him, the young expert couldn't help but yell angrily as he dodged to the side. "Sorry." Because of the misunderstanding caused by his own mistake, Yu Haoran quickly recovered his original appearance. He cupped his hands and apologized to the young man who had unintentionally offended him. Then, he raised his head and looked for Qin Ling Fei and the others who had entered the castle ahead of time. "Brat, a mere apology is enough to cover up the crime of sneak attacking this young master. Aren't you looking down on me, Zhu Chong, too much? You're looking down on the Zhu clan that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years." Facing Yu Haoran's cupped hand apology, the young man was obviously dissatisfied as he criticized him. Seeing the 43 elite members of the royal family protecting Qin Ling Fei and Yusiki in the middle, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction. This meant that these elite members of the royal family had completely corrected their attitude. However, in the face of Zhu Chong's unrelenting criticism, he instantly stopped smiling and questioned, "Then what do you want?" After all, with his current cultivation and strength, as well as his reputation in the Tianxian continent, he had already given the other party a lot of face by taking the initiative to apologize. Kneel down and kowtow 3 times, and I will let you go," Zhu Chang said arrogantly in the face of Yu Haoran's questioning. "What if I refuse?" Yu Haoran continued to ask. "If you refuse, then you don't need to continue participating in the Hidden Dragon rankings." Zhu Chang shook his head and roared with a ferocious face. "Because I will personally break your neck and send you to hell to be reincarnated." During the Hidden Dragon rankings competition between the Southern Domain and the 5 regions, although any impulsiveness and bloodshed were restricted in the Tianxian continent, it did not affect the impulsiveness and bloodshed in the competition. In some aspects, it even encouraged the participants to kill each other. Therefore, in the face of Zhu Chang's murderous intent, Yu Haoran's response was very simple. The perfect speed of the law of speed allowed him to instantly appear in front of Zhu Chang. The terrifying pressure of his aura firmly locked onto Zhu Chang. With a basic fist arts cannon fist, he directly turned Zhu Chang, who was only at the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm, into minced meat. Seeing Yu Haoran directly kill someone without saying a word, the 43 elite members of the royal family of the Qin Kingdom, as well as some of the surrounding young experts, revealed a trace of reverence in their eyes. Although my Zhu clan strength is not comparable to the 7 top sects, it is still a first-rate power that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. How can you kill the elite members of the clan just because you want to? After Yu Haoran easily killed Zhu Chang and planned to meet up with Qin Lingfei and the others, a threat full of murderous intent suddenly came from behind him. Putting down the left foot that he had just lifted, Yu Haoran turned his head to look at the youth behind him who had just threatened him and asked with a calm expression, "Then what do you want? Destroy your own cultivation and break your own limbs, and I will spare your life." The Zhu clan youth, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm, ordered with a self-righteous expression, "Okay, I will satisfy your request." To everyone's surprise, facing the cruel request of the Zhu clan youth, Yu Haoran actually nodded his head in agreement. However, with Yu Haoran's following actions, everyone finally understood why he had agreed to the other party's request. Similarly, he used the complete stage of the Law of Speed to instantly appear beside the Zhu Chang youth, and then activated a terrifying aura to lock onto the other party. Although the Zhu clan youth's strength had already reached the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm, his slightly outstanding talent made his strength not much greater than Zhu Chang's. Therefore, he was unable to resist the terrifying aura locking onto him and was firmly fixed in place. The tightly clenched left fist directly shattered the other party's dantian. The powerful spiritual sense directly tore apart the other party's sea of consciousness, and 4 sharp streams of essence directly chopped off the other party's limbs. Yu Haoran used the opposite method to satisfy the other party's cruel request. You actually crippled me." The Zhu clan youth, who had lost his limbs and fell to the ground, shouted in disbelief. "Wasn't this your request just now?" After Yu Haoran coldly replied to the Zhu clan youth's question, he looked at the other Zhu clan youth who had just surrounded him with a cold gaze and then walked towards Qin Lingfei and the others. "Prince Consort, are you all right?" Pointing at the Zhu clan youth whose cultivation and limbs had been crippled, Qin Lingfei asked with a little worry. The predecessor of the Zhu clan was the great Ming Empire that ruled the entire eastern domain 30,000 years ago. Although the great Ming Empire fell apart due to the collective betrayal of the 99 kings, the Zhu clan, which represented the imperial family, was not only not exterminated, but instead used the method of independent survival and development to make the entire Zhu clan stronger and stronger. As for the Zhu clan that lived in the southern domain, because all of their peerless geniuses and above were sent to the main family in the central domain to be nurtured, their reputation was not prominent. However, their true strength was not inferior to the Guliang clan and the Su clan. Therefore, this was also the main reason why the Northern Expedition Army took the initiative to bypass the Phoenix Sun City and why Qin Lingfei was worried. "I'm fine." Lightly patting Qin Lingfei's jade hand, Yu Haoran smiled and comforted her. During the competition for the Hidden Dragon rankings, only the participating contestants are allowed to fight each other. Even if the Zhu clan possesses an almighty expert who is about to reach the level of Emperor Wu, they would absolutely not dare to easily retaliate against me. After the competition for the 5 regions' Hidden Dragon rankings is over, I will be able to rely on the enormous Hidden Dragon fate to become a peerless expert in one fell swoop. I will be even less afraid of the Zhu clan's threat. That's good. After hearing Yu Haoran's comforting words, Qin Lingfei patted her chest and let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 1334. Inside the Hidden Dragon Fortress. After watching Yu Haoran and the others leave, the youth from the Zhu family, who had lost his cultivation base and limbs, ordered his companion. Binzi, you must get Brother Xiancheng to avenge me in Changzi. Brother Min, Binzi understands. The youth called Binzi resisted the sadness in his eyes and nodded. Binzi, take out a peace pill and send me on my way. After receiving Binzi's nod, Brother Min's eyes flashed with a trace of loneliness, and his tone was filled with determination as he ordered his companion. Brother Min, don't be discouraged. The alchemy grandmaster from the main family in the central region will definitely have a way to help you recover. Seeing that Brother Min wanted to commit suicide, Binzi's expression changed as he hurriedly tried to persuade him. Binzi, don't you know what kind of people those in power in the main family are? When Binzi mentioned the alchemy grandmaster of the family, the loneliness in Brother Min's eyes was instantly replaced by a bright light. However, when he thought of the indifference of the upper echelons of the family and their ruthless treatment of trash, the bright light in his eyes was replaced by loneliness again. Binzi, seeing that I have treated you well in the past, please help me one last time. With tears in his eyes, Binzi took out a milky white pill that emitted a strange fragrance from his storage ring and put it into Brother Min's mouth with his trembling left hand. After Brother Min slowly closed his eyes, Binzi used his origin energy to retrieve his severed limbs and bent down to pick up Brother Min who had lost his limbs. Then, with a ferocious expression, he walked step by step towards the courtyard where the Zhu clan's disciples lived. Not only was the Hidden Dragon Fortress different from a normal city, but its internal structure was also different. Other than the 100 stands in the central square of the fortress and the loft that reached into the clouds, there were layers upon layers of stone chairs all around. Counting carefully, there were hundreds of thousands of stone chairs. These stone chairs were specially made for the experts who had come to watch the competition in his previous life. Of course, the higher the level of the stone chairs, the wider the line of sight, and the larger the gap between the chairs, the more comfortable it would be to watch the competition. At the same time, the experts watching the competition had to rely on their own strength and the strength of the faction behind them to compete. Other than the arena and stone chairs in the center of the castle, the north and east of the city were all independent villas, each with a number clearly marked on the door. Counting carefully, there were a total of 100 independent courtyards in the north and east of the city, which represented the top 100 of the Hidden Dragon rank. At the same time, if one were to observe carefully, they would discover that the courtyards closer to the front not only had a wider building area, but the environment was also more beautiful. Furthermore, the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the courtyard was also denser. Sweeping his gaze over the top 10 monasteries, Yu Haoran pointed at the 9th monastery as he spoke to Qin Lingfei and the others. The 9th courtyard will be our temporary residence during the competition. Prince Consort, isn't this too risky? Looking at the 9th courtyard that was like a paradise, Qin Lingfei worriedly asked. As someone who also understood the rules of the Hidden Dragon Fortress, she was very clear on how important the top 10 villas were. That was because the first 10 courtyards were not only a comfortable place to live, but also a symbol of one's status. That was why she was worried that choosing the 9th courtyard would cause unnecessary conflicts and challenges. Facing Qin Lingfei's worry, Yu Haoran lightly smiled and comforted her. Lingfei, actually, no matter if you choose the 1st or the 100th courtyard, the troubles that should come will come sooner or later. It is not something that you can avoid even if you want to. Therefore, facing all the troubles and challenges calmly is the Tao heart that a martial artist should have in order to climb to the peak of martial arts. Speaking up to here, he pointed at the ordinary houses in the west and south of the city and laughed as he teased. Unless you want to choose one of those houses that can be shared by 7 or 8 people, then perhaps you can avoid all the troubles and challenges. Actually, with his current cultivation and strength, as well as his reputation that shook the entire Tianxian continent, he could totally choose one of the higher-ranked monasteries. Even choosing the first courtyard was not impossible. However, he was instinctively interested in the number 9 and had always treated 9 as his lucky number. Therefore, he chose the slightly lower-ranked 9th courtyard. Fine. Turning her head to look at those messy houses in the west and south of the city, Qin Lingfei's eyes flashed with a trace of disgust, and she nodded in agreement with Yu Haoren's choice. Seeing that Yu Haoren and Qin Lingfei had already reached an agreement, Wu Xingjun walked over to the 9th courtyard and then directly kicked open the courtyard's door while loudly berating everyone inside. The people inside, listen up. You have 3 seconds to leave the 9th courtyard. Otherwise, I will directly break your arms and legs and then toss you out of the courtyard one by one. Wu Xingjuan's overbearing and unreasonable words caused Qin Lingfei and Yu Siki to frown. But seeing that Yu Haoren greatly appreciated his way of doing things, they remained silent and didn't say anything. Io, you're so young, but your tone is quite big. Let me see which idiot actually dares to break the arms and legs of my Hong family's disciples. Accompanied by a strange mocking voice, a young man wearing a cyan robe quickly appeared in front of the courtyard's door. 3. Ignoring the cyan-robed young man's mocking, Wu Zhengjun calmly started the countdown. Kid, there's no need to count down. I'll break your arms and legs right now and cut off your 5th limb. I'll let you know the consequences of offending my Hong family. Shaking his head, the cyan-robed young man said with a sinister smile while taking out his natal sword and directly chopping towards Wu Zhengjun's crotch. After a terrifying cold light flashed in his eyes, Wu Zhengjun used the same law of speed that he had comprehended and instantly appeared in front of the cyan-robed young man. After easily dodging the incoming natal sword, his palms directly twisted the young man's arms, and his left leg directly kicked the young man's legs. The cyan-robed young man, whose limbs were instantly broken, couldn't bear the severe pain caused by his broken arms and legs and desperately howled. Who dares to hurt my Hong family's elite disciple? His hoarse and painful howl immediately attracted the attention of the Hong family's more powerful disciple in the courtyard. A young man whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level martial saint immediately appeared in front of the courtyard's door like lightning. Kid, you're courting death. After seeing his companion's limbs broken and lying on the ground screaming miserably, a strong murderous intent immediately appeared in the young man's eyes as he rushed towards Wu Xingjun. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.